The History of the Tau Empire. Located far out upon the eastern fringe of Imperial space, Tau is a small world with a single continental landmass and a swift and magnificent sunrise. It has been the scene of strife and great conflict in its time, and has also served as the cradle of a civilization that even now bears its light ever further into the darkness between the stars. The Tau began like countless other sentient species. They progressed from primitives to herder tribes, inhabiting the savanna plains and mountains of their homeworld. They developed language, tools, and of course, weapons. What singles their tale out is the speed with which these advances came. The Tau are short-lived by human standards, but strive with a dynamism that sees each generation achieve remarkable progress. During their early days, the ancestors of the Tau rapidly outpaced their moral growth with their practical and martial development. Inevitably, disaster followed. The Tau had long been diverging both physically and mentally. Strong and warlike plains hunters, tough, skilled builders and settlers, loquacious merchants and diplomats, winged messengers. Each became entrenched in their nature as fortresses rose and black powder weapons proliferated. Tribal alliances formed, wars erupted, and so began the Mont'au, or the Terror, a dark time of conflict that looked destined to drive the Tau to extinction. It is a shadow the modern Tau fear even now, for it speaks of a darkness within their collective psyche, whose resurgence they will always dread. According to Tau myth, the end of the Mont'au was marked by strange lights in the sky and half-glimpsed figures in the mountains. These were first believed to portend the end of days, yet instead they seem to have announced the coming of the Tau, who would become known as the Ethereals. With them came destiny. The first documented sighting of the strange new Tau was at Votann, a place where a mighty fortress lay besieged by those of the plains and the air. Legends say that negotiation between the warring sides proved impossible. For 5 seasons the cannons of Votann held the citadel's attackers at bay. Every day bloody and brutal, but within supplies dwindled and disease was rife. The leaders, convinced the end was nigh. They were, to their immense gratitude, wrong. The Ethereals walked calmly out of the night and compelled the leaders of both sides to sit down and agree a peace where none had before been possible. Legends tell how the Ethereals spoke along with the assembled Tau, who, until so recently, had sought one another's deaths. The Ethereals told of a shared destiny. They projected a sense of undeniable authority, and in the light of a new dawn they secured alliance and cooperation between the warring factions. Countless similar tales abound, even if some are apocryphal or have been exaggerated. Still, it cannot be argued that, whatever their mysterious provenance, the Ethereals ended the Mont'au and united their species in a single goal. This goal was the Tau Va, or greater good. From that time onward, the breakneck pace of Tau advancement became one of their greatest strengths. Guided by the Council of Ethereals, the Tau adopted a rigid caste system that saw the different tribes arranged and valued by their strengths. The Earth caste were builders and craftsmen, and, as their technology base advanced, became engineers and scientists. The Air caste continued to act as scouts and messengers, serving eventually as pilots and spacefarers. Those tribes who had specialized in mercantile trade or diplomacy became the Water caste, whose administrative influence flowed through their society and kept the wheels of progress turning. Stubborn and aggressive, the warlike plains dwellers took the longest to embrace the teachings of the Ethereals. Yet even they eventually exceeded and became the Fire caste. In time they would graduate from being huntsmen to being standing military, and it was during these early centuries that they adopted the teachings of the Code of Fire, that still regulate their conduct to this day. This unified drive towards progress saw the Tau establish orbital void cities, and then push outwards to claim new worlds and systems for their own. Such swift advancement also subjected the Tau to unbelievable stresses and challenges, encountering alien species, many of which proved hostile and had to be fought for survival, the constant push towards progress and territorial expansion that required selfless dedication from every member of Tau society, the burning need for fresh resources to power the endless toil, the burden of believing in their people's destiny to save the galaxy from itself. Such stresses have proven too much for many burgeoning empires, even when spread out over far greater periods of time, yet the Tau almost seem to relish each fresh hurdle. Though they may suffer and bleed, and pay dearly for every forward step, still, in the service of the greater good, the Tau move ever forward, and they do so gladly. The first contact between the Imperium and the Tau is believed to have occurred shortly before the Age of Apostasy. Records of such antiquity are, of course, subject to much degradation. Moreover, before this contact was made by the Adeptus Mechanicus, those datalogues that endure are guarded with acquisitive jealousy. For all this, there are those amongst the Ordo Xenos and the Death Watch who have accessed the blessed records and pieced together disturbing revelations from them. It appears that the world of Tau was surveyed from the void by the Adeptus Mechanicus explorator ship Land's Vision, and its Xenos denizens discovered. At this time, however, the Tau were little more than primitive savages. Their world was marked for purgation and human resettlement. Before this sentence could be carried out, however, warp storm activity cut Tau off from the Imperium. Millennia passed before humanity and Tau were to meet again, yet not nearly so long as to explain the growing stellar empire into which the aliens had flourished in the intervening time. Such explosive technological and cultural advancement has disquieted Imperial observers deeply. While the Tau might register as little more than an irritant to the Imperium at the moment, if their expansion and development continues at such a rapid pace, there is no telling what manner of galactic threat their empire will become. Report transmitted. Corwin Delta. Destination Mars. Date 5432-999-M41. Telepathic duct Astra Terminus Tarragon. Reference ADMEC 993488844/Zine 583. Author Genitor Secundus Zachary Santiago. Title Cogitation on the Evolutionary Process and Technological Heresy of the Tau Race. Evolution. With increased contact being made with the Xenos known as Tau, it is becoming increasingly apparent, with the exception of the Tyranids, this race has displayed a rise to prominence unlike any other. The first recorded contact with the Tau, some 6,000 years ago, found them in a primitive state, having only recently mastered the use of simple clubs and fire. Further information is extremely scarce, as the planet appears to have been isolated for many thousands of years by warp storms of unusual ferocity and duration. Renewed contact has revealed an evolutionary leap far beyond what would normally be expected. Since they were first catalogued, the Tau have progressed to a technological level that, while obviously not as enlightened as that of our own blessed order, is nevertheless highly advanced. Deus ex mechanicus, all praise to the Omniscire. I have undertaken this study to deduce the origin of the Tau in order to discover whether this progress is the result of natural selection or some other external force. Natural selection is an evolutionary mechanism that takes place when selected individuals of a population are better able to adapt to their environment and, consequently, produce more offspring. Nature ultimately selects these individuals with the traits most likely to survive into adulthood and reproduction. As a consequence, the resulting evolution is so gradual as to be almost impossible to detect in only a few generations. However, In the case of the Tau, there is evidence to suggest that their species underwent short periods of ultra-rapid change. We can only guess what caused these changes, perhaps climatological variants, altered feeding patterns of predators, food supply, or some unknown external factor. See attached graph. The result would be an accelerated rate of change in gene pool frequencies of the traits that became most favoured by the new environmental conditions. It is now quite apparent that the evolutionary history of the Tau is extremely complicated. Different subspecies have evolved at different rates, and those rates have changed through time in response to complex patterns of interaction with other species and environmental factors. What these interactions were we can only guess at, given the little information we are able to extract from the Tau test subject on his race's early history. From the information gleaned, I humbly advance a theory to explain the evolution of the Tau, which I call Zachary's theorem of adaptive divergence. Driven by natural selection, adaptive divergence is the diversification of a species into two or more subspecies as groups adapt to their distinct environment. I believe that the initial step is the separation of a species into distinct breeding populations, which could occur as a result of a geographic or social isolation. Over time, the gene pools of the isolated groups would diverge from each other by gradually acquiring random mutations or as a result of genetic drift. In other words, nature selects different traits to exist within the gene pool of the different populations. And over time, the populations genetically diverge enough so that, to all intents and purposes, they become separate subspecies. One would normally expect this process to take millions of years, but evidence of synthetic proteins and amino acid chains within the test subject's internal organs leads me to believe that this process may have been accelerated somehow. How this heresy against nature could have occurred is beyond the scope of this document, and a mystery I leave to other, more qualified investigators. Technology. The heresy of these aliens reaches its zenith when one looks at their technology. While admittedly its performance can match and occasionally exceed that of Imperial manufacture, it displays none of the proper obeisances to the Holy Spirit of the Machine God. Such effrontery I can scarce believe, and I recommend that all recovered Tau artifacts are destroyed, in accordance with Adeptus Mechanicus Directive ADMEC 666. It is on the Eastern Fringe that one finds the most blatant disregard for Imperial doctrine, with many outlying colonies trading with these aliens for their technology, in the form of improved construction and agricultural machinery. Where Imperial servants have discovered such illegal artifacts, they have seized them and placed the offending colonists in penal servitude. More difficult to enforce is when such technology finds its way into the hands of those in positions of authority, or are difficult to trace. One example is the hunting rig of the so-called Spire Hunter gangs found in the Necromunda hive complexes. Reference Ordo Xenos file 4353 Alien Technologies /B. These aristocratic ne'er-do-wells wear armoured battlesuits said to be self-sustaining, self-repairing, and fully capable of recording the wearer's every action. The implications of this last facility are truly horrifying. Does the information return to the Tau? Have these aliens been using these technological abominations to spy on our cities for all these years? It is imperative that these gangs be made to hand over their hunting rigs, lest the Tau garner ever more information concerning the Imperium. The insidious influence of these aliens should not be underestimated. Their technology has already spread to worlds deep within the Segmentum Solar, and perhaps to Holy Terror itself, though surely no loyal citizen could possibly countenance such blasphemy. Though it is not within my purview to advise on Imperial policy, I urge the recipients of this document to pursue the persecution of these deviant aliens with the utmost vigour wherever encountered. Your humble servant, Genitor Secundus Zachary Santiago. The Greater Good. The Tauvar can be summed up simply It is the belief that the individual life of any given member of the Tau Empire is of less importance than the needs of the Empire itself. Its adherents gladly expend incredible efforts, endure shocking hardships, and lay down their lives without a second thought for the furtherance of this greater good. Ever since the coming of the Ethereals, Tau society has been focused upon fulfilling a singular destiny. With very few exceptions, every Tau believes wholeheartedly in giving all that they have to the advancement of the greater good. Moreover, they believe that it is their duty and privilege to carry this creed out into the stars and unify every sentient species beneath their secular faith. The Tau put great store in every achievement and personal sacrifice that advances this goal. Those who excel in the service of the greater good are lauded, while those rare few who allow personal hubris, vanity, or selfishness to come first are vilified. The Tauvar has many apparent benefits. Thanks to the unstinting efforts of earth-caste miners, engineers, and architects, the cities of the Tau Septs are clean and orderly. They are technologically advanced places, well protected from hostile environments and enemies alike. Energy shields and vast habitation domes hold indigenous life forms and perilous weather systems at bay. Railguns, ion cannons, firecast garrisons, and hive-like drone ports watch over the habitation zones, science complexes, cultural centres, military academies, watercast diplomatic embassies, aircast spaceports, and other bustling centres that fill the cities. Solid light sculptures, dancing fountains, and peaceful parklands grace even the meanest settlements. Within their bounds, aliens of many sorts rub shoulders in peace, with the Tau moving through them as first amongst equals. There is little of what other species might consider opulence, for the Tau see such self-oriented displays of wealth as wasteful. Yet equally, there is nothing of the poverty or squalor that afflicts most other civilizations. Of course, all who dwell in these cities have their places within Tau society predetermined by caste and by the orders of the Ethereals. They toil for the greater good, while surrounded by carefully nuanced propaganda that extols the glories and victories of their eminently superior empire. The Tau and their allies have little say in their own personal destinies, for, by the command of the Ethereals, these are subsumed into a single great destiny that they all must serve. Yet it would not occur to most Tau even to question the serenely issued edicts of their ruling caste. The word of the Ethereals is law, and no true Tau or ally of their empire would seek to contradict it. The greater good demands the tireless expansion of the Tau Empire. It is not enough to wait for the peoples of the galaxy to come in search of enlightenment. The Tau feel genuine compassion for those unfortunate enough to still toil in darkness and ignorance. They believe the message of the greater good must be brought to all, and every civilization ushered into the wonder of its light. So it is that they forge ever onwards, growing their empire's borders in a series of grand expansions and establishing new colonized systems, which they call septs. Each sept is named for its capital planet, or sept world, and can include myriad other worlds, moons, void stations, and orbital structures. Drones lead the way out into the void, tiny lights streaking through the immensity of space as they broadcast messages of hope and unity. Whenever a drone detects signals from a sentient species, it alerts the Tau and beckons their colonization fleets hence. From this point, the Tau observe a specific series of protocols. First contact is always made by ambassadors of the water caste, who entreat peaceful negotiations with the newly discovered aliens. Silver-tongued and fervently committed to spreading the message of the greater good, the ambassadors do all they can to convince their hosts of the benefits of becoming part of the Tau Empire. Should the world's inhabitants accept this invitation, Even should such acceptance take generations to arrive at, then all is well. Tau colonization begins at once, and often the indigenous peoples are peacefully relocated deeper into the Tau Empire, where they can be educated in the glory of the Tau Va. Their skills and worth are assessed, just as their former homeworld and its resources are absorbed into the Empire. So too are the new aliens placed where they will best benefit the greater good. Regrettably, from the Tau Empire's standpoint anyway, many reject these diplomatic advances. Such beings cannot be left to threaten the Empire in their ignorance. The Firecast now come to the fore, readying invasion plans that will most swiftly see the ingrates pacified. When the Tau attack, they come suddenly from the firmament, with overwhelming speed and firepower, seeking to prove to their enemies the hopelessness of standing against those unified by the greater good. So is the lesson of acquiescence taught through force. Yet even in victory the Tau are not needlessly cruel. They seek to preserve what they can of both the enemy's world and the enemy themselves, for both will be valuable assets to the Tau Empire once conquered. As the Ethereals say, it is not the fault of those who are blind that they cannot yet see. Forced integration and re-education follows, even as the Earthcast set to work healing the planet's battle scars and resettling it as the Empire's latest outpost of enlightenment. So have the Tau pushed back the darkness beyond their boundaries for many centuries. In the tumult, following the opening of the Great Rift, known to the Tau as the Mont'au, or Devourer of Hope, there are more worlds and species lost to darkness and terror than ever before. These the Tau will rescue, no matter the cost, bringing them into the glorious light of their growing empire. The caste system. So completely have the Tau absorbed the concept of the greater good that it has come to shape their entire society, and even their physical and mental makeup. Long, now, have they been divided into castes, each with its own strictly delineated responsibilities to the Empire and the other castes. The Tau caste system transforms their society from countless individuals to a coherent whole, comprising 4 hard-working component elements, directed in all things by a 5th. Tau are born into their castes, live their lives by the tenets of that caste, and all hope to eventually pass away having furthered its contribution to the greater good. The Ethereals permit no interbreeding between Tau of different castes. They further monitor the development of each as a careful gardener tends to their plants, paring away weak or recessive shoots, while ensuring the healthy limbs are given all they need to thrive. The Tau themselves do not question the righteousness of this system. It is as natural to them as the progression of day and night, or the actions of gravity or time. They accept all of the societal and personal restrictions placed upon them by their ethereal masters, as necessary for the greater good, and think no more about it. Even within their caste, most Tau have their place marked out for them as need dictates. That said, the Tau Empire is, broadly speaking, a meritocracy in which excellence is recognized with progress. In the Fire caste, this takes the form of advancement through the ranks and brings honours such as piloting a battlesuit or rising to command armies. By comparison, a skilled Earth caste Tau might be plucked from a more menial role and propelled into a lifetime of scientific or technological experimentation, or the architectural design of grand structures. One might be forgiven for thinking that Tau society would frown upon individuals taking pride in their achievements, but it is not so. Rather, each individual is encouraged to derive the greatest satisfaction from their works, military conquests, new discoveries, and the like, with 2 crucial caveats. The first is that all such labours are equally as important to the Empire, and that a humble labourer who finishes raising a wall should be prized just as highly by her fellows as should an ace pilot who shoots down many enemy fighter craft. or a fire-cast Chasseau who conquers a world for the Empire. The second is that all such personal glories are won for the Empire, not for the individual. This subtle but crucial emphasis ensures that the vast majority of Tau strive their whole lives with willing enthusiasm to achieve all they can for the Tau Va, and goes some way to preventing factionalism or damaging rivalries between the castes. The Tau have a tendency towards short lives when compared to the average human, coupled with their lightning-fast evolutionary advances and the rigidity of the caste system. This has led them, over countless brief but bright-burning generations, to diverge into something closer to 4 independent subspecies. All are still recognisably Tau. They are humanoid in form, with hoof-like feet and blue skin, whose shade depends upon their world's proximity to its nearest star. However, no Tau could ever mistake a member of another caste for their own, and indeed even their physiology differs quite markedly. Those who have fought the Tau Empire and become used to the comparatively burly and aggressive fire caste would be surprised at the sight of a squat, broad earth caste Tau, an elegant and swift-witted trader of the water caste, or, strangest of all, one of the willowy air caste, with their etiolated build and gangly limbs. One of the few apparent constants that unites all the castes is an absolute lack of sensitivity to the Imperium. There are seemingly no psychers amongst the Tau, nor any tendency towards the uncontrolled mutation that the warp's touch brings. It is unclear to what degree the Ethereals know or comprehend the hellish dimension that roils beneath the skin of real space, but it is readily apparent that the Empire they rule understands nothing of it. In many ways, of course, this is a blessing, for the touch of the warp is wholly corrupting. Yet in others, for a people pushing ever further into a dark and violent galaxy, where the power of chaos is on the rise, it is a perilous blind spot. The Firecaste. The Firecaste constitutes the warriors of Tau society. It is the duty of these soldiers to protect the other castes, and to eliminate any foes foolish enough to oppose the will of the Tau Empire. Long ago, the Firecaste originated from the hunter tribes of the plains. Even then, they were already the strongest and most aggressive of all the Tau. Through the years, the Firecaste's desirable traits of strength and physical size have continued to increase, and any weak strains are quickly weeded out. They are guided by an enduring creed known as the Code of Fire, which stresses martial arts, loyalty, and merciless war tempered by wisdom. The Fire Warriors spend their entire lives either in battle or preparing for it, constantly honing their tactics and relentlessly working to improve their combat skills. Earthcaste. The Earthcaste comprises the artisans, engineers, and labourers of the Tau. It is by far the most populous of the castes. It is they who construct machines, raise colonies and cities, and provide food for the rest of the Tau Empire. Without the Earth caste, the farms would not produce, and the factories would stand idle. The menial levels of the Earth caste are sturdy labourers who toil ceaselessly. Its foremost minds, by comparison, become engineers and scientists, inventors beyond compare. It is they who fashion the sophisticated technologies and forward-leaping innovations that are so prevalent throughout every level of Tau society, and who ensure the Firecaste have the weapons they need to fight their wars. The Water Caste. Water is the element that can be found in all living things, flowing continuously to allow life to function. Such is the comparison oft repeated by the bureaucrats, politicians, diplomats, and administrators of the Water Caste. In essence, they are the civil servants who make Tau society run smoothly. The Water Caste make up the merchants, traders, and ambassadorial corps, moving fluidly among the other castes and any aliens incorporated into the Tau Empire. They assuage fears and ensure all negotiations are handled with great efficiency. This subset of the Tau has always displayed a gift for linguistics, a talent that has grown ever more refined over time. The Watercast are able to learn alien languages with ease, and show a remarkable aptitude for understanding and emulating even the most nuanced aspects of social, religious, and political interaction. Aircast. In ancient times, the Tau of the Aircast were messengers, but they now fill the role of pilots and spaceship crews, transporting goods and warriors to where they are needed, or pushing back the boundaries of known Tau space. The Aircast, sometimes called the Invisible Cast, are the unseen force, for they rarely, if ever, set foot upon planets. Most Aircast Tau spend the majority of their lives in void transit or aboard space stations. Their bodies have evolved to fit their new circumstances, no longer bearing wings as they once did, but instead exhibiting longer and lighter frames in response to their low-gravity existence. Hollow bones allow the pilots of the Aircast to withstand great acceleration, though they are conversely weak and ungainly on worlds with even moderate gravity. In battle, the Aircast rain death from the skies, while crewing either attack fighters or bomber craft in support of the planet-bound fire warriors. Ethereals. The Ethereal Cast stand apart from their people. They rule the Tau as a wise and patient adult might guide spirited, if occasionally wayward, youths to realize their truest potential. Sometimes serene and benevolent, other times hard and stern as stone, it is the Ethereals who divine the needs of the greater good, and who decree the ways in which the Tau Empire may bring it about. The Ethereals, or Ethereals, in all honesty, I'm not sure how to pronounce this filthy Xenos word, rule Tau society. They are long-lived when compared to the other castes, and this gives them greater scope of vision. It is they who determine the goals of their empire, and who guide their people's feet upon their chosen paths. For their part, the Tau view the Ethereals with a reverence bordering on the religious. Secular rulers, priests, grand galactic strategists, the Ethereals are all these things, and the respect they are paid is absolute. The Ethereals perform a unifying role within the Tau Empire. They take counsel from senior members of each caste, but ultimately all decisions are theirs to make, and responsibility is theirs to be borne. Ethereals must motivate. They must lead, encourage, or rein in the Tau of the other castes as need dictates. They do all this with the absolute confidence of those who know they possess a monopoly upon the truth. Amongst their most important duties is the orchestration of propaganda that is beamed endlessly across the Tau Empire to spread hope and determination. It is a small wonder that Tau interstellar communication technology has seen advancement every bit as meteoric as that of their voidcraft or military hardware. To their own people, the Ethereals are infinitely wise rulers, ruthless when they must be, but ultimately altruistic. To outside species, they cultivate a more aloof appearance. They do nothing to dissuade more primitive alien species from deifying them, or more recalcitrant peoples from fearing them, as all-knowing and perilous to anger. No one, neither Tau nor alien observer, knows how the Ethereals exert such unquestioned authority over their people. This is due, in part, to the suicidal lengths Tau will go to in defence of their Ethereals. Rare indeed is the capture of these revered beings, for entire hunter cadres would rather go to their willing deaths than know the crushing shame of having allowed their assigned Ethereal to be captured or slain. Lack of experimental subjects has not stopped Imperial biologians from speculating upon the mechanisms of Ethereal rule, of course, discarding as facile the suggestion that the Tau simply believe unswervingly in their Xenos creed. Such magi have suggested everything from veiled psychic domination or pheromonal control to even more outlandish theories like mass hypnosis or the deployment of invisible organic nanites. Whatever its method, the Ethereals' effect upon their people is very evident in battle, where they evoke the elemental truths to inspire nigh on supernatural feats of accuracy, courage, speed, and resilience. Their mere presence evokes something like zealotry in Mont'au, and countless desperate defeats have been transformed into improbable victories, thanks to the leadership of an Ethereal. The following two examples of two very different types of Ethereal should elucidate the different kinds of characters the Ethereals can be, and their function within Tau society. Aeon Shi. Hailing from the proud martial sept of Viola, Aeon Shi is the indomitable Ethereal whose iron will has steeled the resolve of multitudes of Tau across many frontiers. A modest hero of numerous battles, Aeon Shi longs for peace, but is bound by duty to his comrades, and is wholly committed to furthering the cause of the greater good. Because of his exemplary service, and his habit of joining them for battle rituals and training, Aeon Shi is lionized by the Firecast. Thanks to his long career and many exploits, Aeon Shi is also seen by the Firecast as a sure sign of victory, and he is greeted everywhere he travels with many salutes and deep, respectful bows. At the time of the battle that catapulted Aeon Shi to the position of a full-scale hero of the Empire, he was already nearing the age when an Ethereal can choose to retire to a life of contemplation within the temple domes of their caste. Due to his many successes, Aeon Shi was entitled to spend his last years on the paradise world of Eotal, an honour accorded to only those who have excelled in their drive for the greater good. Aeon Shi's last assignment was to bolster a new colony named Keltir. Established on a planet that turned out to be infested with Orks, the colony's progress had been slow, but with the arrival of reinforcements and Aeon Shi's canny alien fighting guidance, the Fire Warriors were soon able to clear the main continent. This allowed the Earthcast to construct great cities and better establish the exploitation of Keltir's natural resources. On his final inspection tour, however, Aeon Shi became trapped in Fireblade when a horde of Orks surrounded the compound. With their chasse vraie beheaded by the Ork war boss, the Fire Warriors began to panic. Leaping to action, Aeon Shi used his famed honor blade to cut the Ork leader in two, planting the weapon's haft between the shorn halves of the twitching corpse. Heartened, the Fire Warriors steadied their firing line. Again and again the Orks were repelled from the ever-constricting perimeter, despite the growing mounds of dead. The Greenskins hurtled forwards, and everywhere they reached the Tau lines, Aeon Shi was there to meet them. Tirelessly, he chopped the savages down, but always they returned. As the Orks finally closed for the kill, a relief force arrived. When they reached the only building that remained standing in Fireblade, they were surprised to find Aeon Shi still standing guard over the few survivors, his blade dripping with Ork ichor. News of Aeon Shi's deeds travelled fast. Aeon Va knew well that the Tau must have new heroes, and here was an Ethereal, a living legend amongst the Firecast, and the saviour of Fireblade. Rather than allow such a valuable warrior to fade away, it was decreed that Aeon Shi should continue in his duties and lead fresh expeditions. Known as the Aged Wonder, Aeon Shi continues to bring great fortitude to the Firecast, leading them to yet more victories from the forefront of the third sphere of expansion. Editor's note. Little known amongst the Tau is that Aeon Shi has found himself captured by the evil denizens of Kamura, and now exists within their fighting pits. For more information on this, please check the links in the description to this Voxcast, as well as for a more detailed outline of the Battle of Fireblade. Aeon Va, the Ethereal Supreme. Aeon Va is the oldest and highest ranking of the Ethereal Council. His voice is law across the entire Tau Empire. His hand is visible in many of his people's greatest achievements. Aeon Va is revered almost as a living deity, and the mere rumour of his arrival is enough to double Earth-caste production quotas, propel military conquests to their victorious conclusion, and trigger countless sombre yet jubilant ceremonies. Despite his irreplaceable value to the Empire, Eonvar is often seen upon the forefront of Tau military campaigns. He does not seek to fight himself. Rather, he allows his awe-inspiring presence to drive the fire and air caste to fight like heroes of legend. The Sioka system victory, the pronouncement of Mount Sion, the remarkable El Yash gauntlet, these and countless other tales are beloved across the Empire, with each painting the Ethereal Supreme as the architect of absolute glorious triumph. Nor are Eonvar's achievements restricted to the battlefield, for he is an orator and negotiator of sublime skill, and has brought even the most challenging alien species into the Empire's fold. Eonvar has lived countless lifespans, even for an ethereal, yet his people accept this as simply another facet of his legend. He is to them an icon of longevity, stability, and purpose, whose mortality could never be countenanced. This is unfortunate, as the true Eonvar is already dead, slain by an Imperial Calexis assassin during the apocalyptic conclusion of the war between the Damocles Gulf. Knowing the cataclysmic impact his death would have upon Tau society, the Ethereals have since employed solid light technology coupled with AI personality matrices to give the Ethereal Supreme a simulacra of life beyond death that has, thus far, fooled the worshipful masses. Of course, his honour guard may now never leave Eonvar's side, and none may ever be permitted to touch him, for the labyrinthine deception must never be revealed. Editor's note. For additional information on this, please follow the links to the history of the Second Damocles Crusade, where Eonvar's fate is revealed. Links in the description of this Voxcast. Tau Military. The Firecast form the military mainstay of the Tau Empire. They are professional soldiers, trained and equipped to the highest possible standards, before being deployed to wherever their people need them most. The might of the Firecast maintains the ongoing momentum of Tau colonial expansion, and forms the final argument against those who would impede the advance of the greater good. The warriors of the Firecast are trained from their youngest days and indoctrinated into the traditions and philosophies of the Code of Fire. They are raised to value honour and reason. They appreciate the application of balanced and well-thought-out strategy and the maintenance of self-control. Never will the Firecast fall back into the madness and barbarity of the Mont'au. To this end, the central pillars of Tau military doctrine are superior mobility and the application of overwhelming firepower. Not for the Firecast the costly last stands, Pyrrhic victories and ghastly meat grinders favoured by humanity or the Orks. For one thing, though it spans many star systems, the Tau Empire is still minuscule when examined upon a galactic scale. Its population is only so large, it can only replace its casualties of war so fast, and struggles to keep up with the demands of ever-expanding colonial borders. Were the Firecast to throw away lives without good reason, the equation would become impossible to balance. Yet more than this, the Tau scorn such wasteful tactics as the last refuge of the terminally inept or barbaric. No fire warrior would hesitate to lay down their life if they believed it would further the cause of the greater good. Yet they would not willingly engage in senseless martyrdom. Indeed, should a Firecast commander lead their forces to victory at steep cost in lives, they are more likely to be shamed for the price of their conquest than fated for its achievement. The armies of the Firecast concentrate on subduing their enemies while preserving their own soldiers' lives. Their way of war relies upon momentum and continuous movement. It puts little stock in the capture of swathes of territory for the sake of planting flags. Indeed, their enemies' compulsion to hold symbolic but strategically meaningless locations, such as sacred temples or static fortifications, often plays into the hands of the Firecast, who can factor such illogical actions into their own plans. They will, of course, fight to secure sites such as communication hubs, supply depots, orbital defence silos and the like. Yet even then, this is done primarily to deny such assets to the foe. Ultimately, the Firecast seek to wear away their enemy's capability and willingness to fight on, and thus secure their capitulation with the minimum needless slaughter. Thus, they will often destroy captured strategic sites rather than claim them for their own. Not only does this prevent costly and escalating static engagements, but also the Tau eschew co-opting enemy installations when they can instead rely upon their own, clearly superior military equipment. Thanks to the tireless efforts of the Earthcast, Tau technology is superior to that of almost any they have encountered. The Firecast acknowledge that even their most physically formidable warriors give something away in both reaction speed and brawn when set against many of the dangerous aliens they fight. Rather than try to compete upon what they view as the most barbaric level of warfare, the Tau instead look to technology, training, and devotion to the greater good to stack the odds in their favour. Even the lowest ranking and untested fire warrior takes to the field clad in resilient battle armour, one shoulder guard of which doubles as a formidable anti-ballistic shield. Their pulse firearms employ induction fields to propel particles that break down and create focused plasma blasts that can either be projected over extreme long range or in rapid storms of short-range fire. Such weaponry ensures fire warriors are well equipped to win firefights against most other infantry in the galaxy. Their helms boast hardened communication and sensory display systems, and in battle their teams can call upon the support of an array of specialized, AI-controlled drones. These loyal and resilient machines fulfill a wide range of roles, from flying force field projectors or energy transmitters that augment Tau weapons, to mobile fire support platforms or grav wave generators. To make best use of their available arsenal, the Firecast place heavy emphasis on skilled marksmanship under pressure, and the use of firearms over brute force even at close quarters. The result is a battle line of infantry that subjects the enemy to unrelenting storms of high-powered anti-personnel fire, whether pressing forward on the attack or holding steady in defence. For all their technology, the Firecast focus just as much attention on the personal and spiritual strength of the soldiers that wield it. Many teams train together from a young age, competing and supporting one another until they are closer than any family. The ultimate expression of this bond is a ritual known as the Talasara, which roughly translates to a type of communion or binding oath. Those who have sworn such an oath as part of a bonding knife ritual may address each other by their individual names and have vowed to support one another unto death. It is not uncommon for teams to progress together as well. Veteran fire warrior teams may even earn promotion to the rank of chasseur together. Each might serve for a time as a squad leader for a different strike team or breacher team, before the survivors are reunited as an XV8 crisis battlesuit team. If fire warriors are all that the Firecast could bring to bear, then they would already be a powerful, albeit limited, force. However, these are but the line infantry, who provide the backbone for the armies of the Tau Empire. Most are born into battle aboard well-armoured gravitic hover transports that keep the fire warriors mobile and well protected and supported amidst the perils of the battlefield. Others man fortifications that are themselves grav-capable. Aboard these, the fire warriors can ride, facilitating mobile fortresses that can redeploy at need and carry their own garrisons with them as they go. Some Firecast soldiers deploy as elite pathfinders, who scout the foe and mark targets for long-ranged elimination, or spot for teams of deadly MV-71 sniper drones. Then there are the supporting formations, heavy gunships such as the TX-7 Hammerhead or TX-78 Skyray, mobile artillery assets such as the mighty Stormsurge, a wealth of aircast, air support ranging from the Smaller fighter craft to huge tank hunters like the AX-52 Barracuda and the vast Manta dropship, the plethora of iconic and deadly battlesuits that so epitomize the technological supremacy of the Tau way of war. Only the most veteran and proven fire warriors are permitted to pilot these wonder weapons, and wherever they strike, they dominate the battlesphere. Taken in their entirety, the armies of the Firecast are versatile and deadly, even before factoring in the orbital support provided by their aircast allies in the void above. This is a war machine, honed to perfection, yet always willing to adapt and develop further so that it might better serve the greater good. Fundamental to the operation of this cutting-edge military machine are the philosophies of war that all fire warriors must strive to master. By far the most common forms of military tactics used by the Tau are Mont'au and Kion. Each method is taught in depth by the great Firecast academies, and each has its own adherents amongst the masters. Both styles are based on hunting techniques that date back to the early years of the Tau's evolutionary and social development, each representing one of the two broad approaches to ensnaring and slaying the quarry. Kion, which roughly translates as the patient hunter, is the oldest of the Tau ways of war. This style of combat relies upon employing one or more lures to draw the enemy in, before closing the jaws of their trap upon the foe once they have committed. The lure itself may be Tau teams, striking then feigning retreat. It may be enemy forces intentionally cut off and tricked into calling for help, or battlefield assets the enemy consider too precious to abandon to the Tau. The true masters of Kion employ layers of contingencies and multiple mobile lures to pull apart their enemy's cohesion before striking with sudden and decisive fury. Mont'au is the other leading Tau military philosophy, and it is both aggressive and risky to execute. Translating as the killing blow, this strategy centers around highly mobile attack forces identifying key targets and assailing them with overwhelming force before withdrawing to safety. Timing and intelligence are key to Mont'au. Launching the attack against inadvisable odds or at an inauspicious time will likely spell disaster. Thus do the Firecast plan every detail of their strike before it is launched, further building in contingencies to prevent needless casualties should fate or a cunning foe intervene. Mont'au may well come in rapid, overlapping assaults from different directions, the Tau employing their mobility and firepower to keep the enemy off balance. In the end, the decision to launch a Mont'au or to call it off lies not with its commander, but rather with troops on the ground who have the best visibility. So it is that many Mont'au attacks are called down by trusted teams of pathfinders behind enemy lines, while the successful execution of such an attack brings great honour to pathfinders and commander both. Of all the commanders ever to lead or to teach, the famed Commander Puretide was perhaps the greatest master of Mont'au, Kion, and of other more unusual philosophies of war. Grievously wounded toward the end of his life, Puretide became a hermit, spending his last years committing his accumulated wisdom and experience to posterity. He wished to pass on his uniquely balanced style of war so that, after his death, others could build upon his successes. All Firecast academies, from the world of Tau itself to the far reaches of the Empire, teach Puretide's work. The most promising students, perhaps only one in every generation, can still apprentice directly under the tutelage of Puretide himself. These elite disciples spend time with the old master thanks to the Earthcast's holographic programming technology, which provides an interactive AI that thinks, responds, and contemplates. The Ethereals tightly control access, but those few who meet the requirements join Puretide at his retreat atop Mount Kenji on Dalith Prime. Despite his efforts, few, if any, of Puretide's students have grasped the full scope of his balanced enlightenment. Yet names such as Oshava, Oshasira, and the much-feared Okase are associated with the old master's tutelage and, while none mastered true balance like their master before, each emerged as a savant of their chosen martial philosophy. Best not to talk about all the hundreds who went insane. Tau Military Organization. The Tau Empire's military campaigns vary in scope and requirement, from localized policing of alien piracy or remote, special operations beyond the borders of Tau space, to full-blown expansion fleets whose duties are equal parts rapid colonization and martial conquest. Thus, the strategic composition and doctrine of the Tau military is kept fluid in order to allow the different castes to work in optimal conjunction. The smallest unit of Tau military organization is the team, or La Rue. Within the context of the Fire caste, this is a formation comprising between 5 and 12 soldiers, including a team leader, who may or may not have earned the rank of Chasseur. Multiple teams are combined beneath a single commander into a cadre, or a Keru. By far the most common of these formations is the Hunter Cadre, a tactically integrated battlefield force built around a core of fire warriors, but further incorporating battlesuits, armoured transports, and gunships, alien auxiliary units, as well as mobile artillery. The precise composition of each Hunter Cadre varies depending upon available assets, the strategic situation, and the preferences of its commander. Regardless of their specific makeup, however, Hunter Cadres remain the dependable and adaptable mobile mainstay of most Tau deployments. There are numerous more specialized types of cadre standardized within the Code of Fire. The Rapid Insertion Cadre, which comprises only battlesuits. The Infiltration Cadre, made up of Pathfinders and Stealth battlesuits. The Auxiliary Reserve Cadre, which fields only alien auxiliaries. The Armoured Interdiction Cadre, which masses Tau gunships in a devastating direct strike formation. The list continues and is always growing, for the Firecast encourage innovation in the optimal deployment of both new and existing military assets. Contingents, or TOV, are temporary assemblages of multiple cadres and are formed from the completion of specific campaign objectives. A contingent will be commanded by its most senior commander, except upon those occasions when an Ethereal chooses to take direct command themselves. Upon the completion of its stated aims, the contingent is dissolved, and its elements are redeployed to new contingents as the situation requires. In recent times, multiple contingents have been gathered into still larger formations known as communes, or cavales. It is a symptom of the ever-growing scale of the wars the Tau must fight that such a sizable formation be required at all. Yet there is no denying communes have proven highly effective, especially when they combine contingencies from different septs in an alloy of specialisms and mutual cooperation. Lastly, all the Tau forces committed to a single location or war zone are referred to as a coalition or chanal. Each coalition is ruled over by an ethereal council. It is further made up of commands, known as Usho, which are the forces committed by each caste to that location of the war zone. For example, all Firecast fighting on the world of Ulmeth would be referred to collectively as Firecast Command Ulmeth. Tau Commanders. A commander, or in the language of the Tau, a chasseur, is the highest rank a fire warrior can attain. It is a position of great honour, and can only be attained after years of progressing through the ranks. There are no shortcuts or exceptions. The final test to advance from the chasseur level is to have repeated success on the battlefield. To be named chasseur is to be proven a master in the martial arts, a first-rate tactician and a true disciple of the art of war. Depending on their situation, sept, and renown, a Tau commander can be called upon to lead anything from a cadre to a coalition. The number and size of previous commands is reflected in the rings, confining their long scalp lock. Those new to the rank might be given a single cadre, a force numbering 100 or so warriors, whilst the greatest military leaders, those whose names and victories are most honoured, can call countless millions to arms with but a single word. There are vast differences in approach and philosophy between the varied Tau Firecast leaders. Some Tau commanders prefer to lead from the front, pushing their XV8 crisis battlesuits to their fullest. The Tau commanders of Viola, Tashvar, and Kalishin are particularly noted for their personal kills, often accompanied into the thick of the battle by an XV8 crisis bodyguard team. Conversely, Tau commanders that hail from the Elysia and Ta'ulko septs are typically considered more cerebral in nature, ordering their troops from behind the front lines and only entering the fray themselves upon great need. There are times when hubris gets the better of these proud military masters, and in such situations the Council of the Ethereals reins the commanders back in. It is constantly said that there is no substitute for victory, but this is balanced by the virtues of the Code of Fire and the greater good. A triumph that sustains more losses than when necessary does not service the true needs of the Tau. Personal heroics, while lauded, are never an end unto themselves. It is rare that a Maukla must take place, a ritual discipline meted out by the Ethereals to those deemed to have erred in judgment in regards to the greater good. Upon attaining the rank of Shasso, a member of the Firecast will serve his sept until death, or until he has earned honoured retirement, though the most successful commanders are asked to join the military high command, the Chassotol. Each of the spheres of expansion has its notable commanders, great heroes whose teachings are still used at the Firecast academies. There, the ways of the wise hunter, a great conqueror of the initial expansions, can be heard, as well as those of Commander Quickstrike, hero of the Borkan sept. Many references are made to Commander Truestar, the female military leader whose brilliant career was marred by a single tragic error, and to the Desert Beast, the wily Commander Dawnstrike, whose exploits of feigned retreat are often emulated but never bettered. Yet of all these great lords of the Firecast, there are none whose battle record can come close to equalling that of Commander Puretide, the noble master whose name was behind the greatest victories of the triumphant Second Sphere expansion. O Shasira, Commander Shadowsun, spearhead of the greater good. Amongst the finest pupils of Commander Puretide, O Shasira is the foremost living proponent of Kion, and amongst the Tau Empire's most iconic war heroes. Clad in her advanced XV-22 Stalker battlesuit, Commander Shadowsun employs her strategic genius to orchestrate elaborate battle plans, all while engaging and destroying the enemy's most valuable assets. More than 400 years before the present day, the humble Shasla, who would become Commander Shadowsun, was the prodigy of the Firecast academies. So exceptional was her performance that she was given the opportunity to study at the feet of the great master, Commander Puretide. There she continued to excel. Despite being Puretide's youngest pupil, she outstripped all of her peers bar one, Commander Oshava. Oshasira and Oshava developed a deep and abiding rivalry that pushed both of them to ever greater feats of excellence in the name of the Tau Empire. That rivalry carried over to the bloody campaign upon Dalif Prime, where the two commanders between them bled the momentum from the Imperial steamroller offensive. It was Oshava's dynamic deeds that gained greatest recognition during the fight. Yet none of his Mont'au tactics would have been possible had it not been for Shadowsun's meticulous Kion strategies. In the wake of that conflict, Commander Farsight was selected by Ionvar for a daring new mission beyond the Damocles Gulf. Shadowsun, along with a number of Puretide's other living pupils, was sent into suspended animation in preparation for a time when the Empire would require new heroes. No doubt a restless and competitive being like Oshasira chafed at being consigned to the long sleep, while her rival continued to win victory after victory for the Empire. Yet she showed her true dedication to the Tau Va that day by accepting without question the decision of the Ethereals. Oshasira knew the time would come when she would best serve the greater good, whether that would take decades, centuries, or millennia. So it did during the Great War of Confederation against the overwhelming Ork threat. Having been revivified upon the order of Ethereal Supreme Aeon and given command of increasingly sizable Tau forces, Shadowsun demonstrated her genius at Kion warfare time and time again. Yet it was her audacious strike to end the Kresh expansions that sealed her reputation as the Tau Empire's greatest hero. She led a stealth cadre into the heart of the Ork encampment to land the killing blow, timing her strike to coincide with an artificial eclipse and using low-flying Orca dropships to deploy her entire cadre by jump jet direct into the enemy lines. Under the cover of this unnatural darkness, Shadowsun and her elite warriors silently picked off the Ork leaders one by one. Oshasira herself expertly hunted the Ork warlord, cutting him down with precision fire before ordering the rest of her cadres to launch their own attacks. Shorn of their leaders, the Orks collapsed into panicked anarchy, and by the time the sunlight burned through the artificial veil, the battle was over. On that day, a new Firecast legend was born. Promoted to Supreme Commander, Oshasira made her address from the Mont'au Battle Dome, the site where Commander Farsight had famously trained. Arriving resplendent in a new prototype XV-22 battlesuit gifted by the Earthcast, she was a sight to stir the martial hearts of all who viewed her. With the entire Firecast watching, Shadowsun began by firing her weapons at the statue of Farsight, obliterating the effigy of this hero-turned-deserter. As the dust settled, she outlined the new campaigns the Tau Empire would soon embark upon. She spoke of honour, the sacred codes of fire, and the all-important lore of the Tau Va. After this address, every fire warrior shouted in one voice, ready to follow their new commander to any end. Since that day, though she has been returned to stasis more than once, Commander Oshasira has remained the champion of the Empire. It was she who led the Third Sphere expansion to so many glorious victories, and who ensured the establishment of septs that have endured beyond the Damocles Gulf ever since. During that conflict, she led the assault that conquered the world of Agrellan in a single day, and it was Shadowsun also who outmaneuvered and struck down Corvin Savarax, then Chapter Master of the Raven Guard Space Marines. It was Shadowsun, too, who spearheaded the Fifth Sphere expansion's leap into the unknown, beyond the Zone of Silence. In the Chalnaf expanse, she secured many fresh victories and masterminded system-wide campaigns of conquest. Some were subtle and diplomatic, others overwhelming martial masterpieces. Following her impressive victory on Astorgius, Commander Shadowsun turned her strategic genius to once again battling her oldest foes, the Orks. Vast numbers of them had been drawn by the free-sided and anarchic campaign raging through large swathes of the Chalnaf expanse. They poured from the Fulner Nebulae in ragtag invasion fleets. With the, bear with me here, with the Theraxaril, Ryatov, and Berylaya systems, there we go, got it, barely pacified, the fierce conflict still raging on half a dozen other fronts. Oshasira was unwilling to allow this new menace to destabilize the precarious expansion of the Namya Atoll. Deploying her forces in a complex web of interlocking positions throughout the Violas, Metasha, and Asoda systems, she began a detailed military campaign with Kion philosophy at its heart. In this way, she plans to bleed dry the Orks' momentum and utterly crush the threat they pose to the Fifth Sphere expansion. For those interested in further information on many of these campaigns, please follow the links below for more detailed explorations of the campaign Shadowsun has been involved in. Oshava, Commander Farsight, hero and traitor. Commit to Imperial record. Crossfile to Aliens Eastern Fringe Mercenaries, Tau. Input date 6284996M41. To Inquisitor Arteles. Honoured Sir, as requested, I have investigated the rumours of a breakaway section of the Tau Empire and the operation of Tau mercenaries in the Horst sector and Damocles Gulf. As you postulated, these two stories have the same root, revolving around an influential Firecast commander called Oshava, or Commander Farsight, who appears to have split off from the mainstream Tau culture. As you will be aware, the Tau Empire has to date been thought exceedingly cohesive, with no dissident elements, and as such this evidence is particularly intriguing, as it represents the first known incident of Tau treason or heresy. Intensive questioning of charter merchants and free captains has uncovered some information, although the complete picture remains rather murky. It appears that after the halt of the Damocles Crusade, when our ships were called to the defence against High Fleet Behemoth, several Tau reclamation forces were dispatched to reconquer their lost colonies. Oshava was the leader of one such force, a considerable fleet of ships and ground troops, accompanying colonial ships to repopulate the cleansed worlds. As is customary, one or more Tau Ethereal cast members were also part of the expedition. It appears that Commander Farsight's expedition ran into unexpected difficulties, with an Ork incursion probing at the shattered edges of the Tau Empire. Oshava abandoned his recolonization mission and instead directed his efforts at fighting the Orks, and was drawn into a decade-long campaign across many worlds. In time, Oshava's forces pushed back into several Ork-held systems in the Damocles Gulf and inflicted exterminatus upon their worlds, effectively terminating the immediate threat. By now the expedition was well beyond the known reaches of Tau space, and it seems that Oshava chose to establish a string of heavily fortified stronghold colonies in the region instead of returning to the Empire. By our reckoning, this would be sometime around 760M41, but an accurate projection is impossible with current facts. I have the first report of alien mercenaries which would fit the description of Tau fire warriors fighting alongside pirate forces at the sack of Penury 4 in 763. Rumours of such activity crop up throughout the period, 770 to 820, before dropping away noticeably to occasional reports up to the present. If such rumours are to be believed, which must be done with natural caution, these Tau mercenaries have fought alongside Krut, unsurprisingly, Tyranids, human renegades, Eldar, and accursed traitor legions, and even Orks. Our most solid piece of information is the offer of assistance reported by Prefect Vertex in the evacuation of the Aleph Sigma 994M41 in the face of one of the Tyranid splinter fleets from Ica 4. High Fleet Harbinger, I believe. I suspect that a number of free captains have established trade routes into the Farsight enclaves, but they remain close-mouthed upon the subject. I have not pursued such matters further, in fear of scaring these individuals away at a time when we may need to elicit their assistance to find out more. Of the apparent intentions of Oshava, if he still lives, I cannot say. The circumstances of his breakaway from the Tau Empire remain shrouded in mystery, so persistent that I strongly suspect that they are being manipulated by some agency in order to hide the truth. The one clue I could uncover in this direction was brought to me by a certain free captain, Dalmatius, who actively sought me out and seemed genuinely concerned by what he had heard. I have included a transcript of the story he told me verbatim, so that you may make your own judgment of it. I would strongly urge that steps be undertaken to infiltrate this Tau enclave and discover what conditions are truly like there. If Captain Dalmatius's testimony proves true, it may indicate that Oshava has been corrupted in some way on the artifact world referred to. If this is true, then there is a greater threat growing in the Farsight strongholds than that represented by the entire Tau Empire. Your devoted servant, Osnius. Captain Dalmatius's testimony. Begin Vox Record. Well, see, I have contacts with the town, and for Xenos they treat you well enough. I got to know this watercast merchant called Mont'au. Dialogist note, lit. Water envoy, a tower rank equivalent. Who's big on drinking and gossip, and whenever I visit town, we get together to trade and talk. I talked to him about the rumours of town mercenaries one time, and he shut right up, wouldn't say a thing about it. Another time, months later, he was deep in his cups, and he brought it up himself. I reckon he was feeling guilty for not saying anything first time. Well, he said, as though it was a bad business to hear of Tau fighting for pay and not the greater good, which is what they often call their empire, and that the Aeon, dialogist note, ethereal cast, should do something about it. He looked guilty for saying that too, but the spirit was in him, if you take my meaning, and he carried on, and told me about Commander Farsight. Seems that Farsight was a big hero to the Tau, fought off 2 big Ork invasions and helped fight against the Imperial Crusade 2 centuries back. When the Crusade was over, Farsight took an expedition out to the edge of the Empire to recolonise some lost outposts or something. One of them, what he called an artefact world, at the edge of the Damocles Gulf. Something happened when the expedition was there. Apparently a message boat came back saying there was fighting, but it seemed confused about who the enemy was. Worse still, the Aeon with the expedition had been killed. But there was no word of it by what. After that, Farsight had apparently gone on to fight another Ork invasion, threatening the Empire, but he never came back, and there was no more word of what had become of the expedition. Mont'au said the rumours must mean that the Farsight's people had set up colonies in the Gulf, in an area the Aeon normally forbade the Tau ships to enter. He reckoned that without the guidance of the Aeon, they were in danger of regressing to barbarism, the terror, he called it, like before the Aeon came, when each caste was set against the other and would fight to dominate each other instead of simply working together for the greater good. So I says that in a setup like that, I wouldn't see how it could be anything other than the Firecast in charge. And he says, if Farsight had wanted it that way, he would have made it like that. Well, Mont'au seemed really upset at the idea of the Fire Warriors running the show, and kept saying they want nothing but war all the time. Now I've seen enough Fire Warriors and Tau ships to know that that'd be bad for everyone. I know you got the ear of the Imperials, Osnius, and I think you'd better let them know double quick. Something bad is brewing in the Damocles Gulf. Vox recording ends. Oshava is the most divisive figure in Tau history, and the greatest warrior ever born of Viola Sept. He is a protege of Commander Puretide. He won great victories on Dali from beyond the Damocles Gulf. Yet he is a traitor who has renounced the rule of the Ethereal High Council and by extension the Tauvar itself. Oshava is the undisputed master of Mont'au. His comrades describe him as decisive, aggressive, strong-willed and single-minded. His detractors, Eonvar, greatest amongst them, call him a willful renegade whose obstinacy led his loyal followers to be damned alongside him. Whether Oshava is hero, traitor, or a little of both, his strategic and tactical brilliance cannot be disputed. It was under the tutelage of Puretide himself that Oshava learned the importance of reading terrain, gauging the foe, and then launching bold, decisive strikes to cripple him in short order. Preferring to eschew long-range firepower, Oshava encourages the aggressive spirit of the Firecast in his warriors, and they have won many bitter battles at close range. Such tactics have proven especially effective against the scourge of the Orks, and it was for his tactical brilliance while battling the hated aliens that the commander won his epithet, Farsight, in recognition of his skill in seeing the foe's plans and countering them before the battle had even begun. The Ethereals would say that Oshava abandoned the Tau Empire, yet the commander would counter that they abandoned him first. As his forces pushed further beyond the Damocles Gulf, so support from the Empire's heartlands dwindled. His was the last action of the Second Sphere expansion, an undertaking that had exhausted the Empire. When Commander Farsight diverted from his mission to do battle with a seemingly endless tide of Orks, the Ethereal Council did indeed become disinclined to feed more of their dwindling reserves into what they saw as Oshava's self-absorbed crusade. By the time of the events upon Arthas Moloch, there was already a rift between Commander Farsight and his former patron Eunvar. The loss of ethereal control during that strange and bloody conflict rendered the breach irreparable. Oshava chose his course partly through obstinate pride, but also for the sake of his warriors, who he believed had been inexcusably betrayed. He saw to the establishment of a string of well-defended and provisioned colony worlds far beyond the bounds of the Empire, and despite ongoing conflicts against many perilous foes, these Farsight enclaves endure still. So does Oshava himself, a fact that mystifies the commander as much as his enemies. The Ethereal High Council remain uncertain if he has secured his longevity through some technological means, or if a series of successors have taken up the mantle of Farsight. The truth is far stranger. During the fighting on Arthas Moloch, Oshava acquired a millennia-old sword, forged aeons ago by the beings that once inhabited that haunted world. This weapon, later named the Dawnblade, was forged from materials the finest earth-cast minds find mystifying. Its edge can cut through solid rock, and since taking it up and modifying it for his battlesuit to wield, it has remained Oshava's weapon of choice. Unbeknownst to the commander, the sword's blade is made from chronophagic alloys. Whenever it cuts a life short, the natural span stolen from the victim is added to the wielder's own. This has allowed Oshava to live for several centuries. Farsight has never learned the full truth of his weapon's power. I need one of them. The strength, courage, and skill of Oshava, as well as the 8, his chosen band of heroic disciples, who each go to war in their own customized battlesuits, has been stretched to the limit in the Era Indomitus. During Farsight's latest campaign to exterminate the Orc threat to his enclaves, he took the fight to Warlord Nazdreg on the planet Dragrok. As the war raged, the unhallowed Bale fleet erupted from the warp on the system's edge. Facing the prospect of being crushed between the Orcs and the forces of chaos, Farsight ordered his armies to fall back to the most unlikely location. By dark fate or strange design, the world of Arthas Moloch was located in the same system as Dragrok. Though he hoped to fight a guerrilla war against both his foes while they vented their fury upon each other, in another dangerous gambit, he sent a messenger drone to the Tau Empire, offering to surrender himself if the Tau sent reinforcements. Farsight's final resort in the grueling battle was by far the most desperate. To return to the great star dais, the site where he experienced so many horrors before, and attempt to unleash the mysterious monsters of Arthas Moloch upon his foes. His hope was that the resultant chaos would grant him and his surviving forces time to withdraw and be extracted. After Eunvar unequivocally rejected Farsight's offer, the commander was left with no choice but to follow this most desperate of plans. What followed was a battle that strained the nerve and sanity of Farsight and his warriors. Yet in the end, their plan was successful, seeing the Tau escape Arthas Moloch, while the rampaging Orcs utterly destroyed the great star dais, whose taint had so long poisoned the planet itself. Later, Farsight returned to Arthas Moloch. What he discovered on the planet shocked him. The planet's microbial biosphere was returning, and the first shoots of new plant life had broken through the soil. Oshava dared hope that perhaps his people could one day settle the world. Cadre Fireblades. Fireblades are the most grizzled and seasoned fire warriors of their cadre, whose skill at the fire warrior's art of battle leads them to eschew battlesuit technology. They are excellent field commanders, and their long experience has taught them exactly where to place shots to maximize damage. It is on the firing line that a Fireblade really comes into his own. There they radiate a steadying calm, directing their fire warriors to maintain accurate fire, no matter the circumstances, instilling each trooper with the precision and efficiency that is the hallmark of thousands of years of martial teachings. Whether breaking the impetus of an advancing horde of greenskins, or seeking to bring down the heavily armoured Space Marines of the Imperium, no one knows a fire warrior's strength better than a Fireblade. A Fireblade will extol what they believe to be the Tau's strength, overwhelming infantry firepower. Theirs is the ability to drive and direct fire warriors as they pour volley after volley of merciless pulse fire into the target. Fireblades were once fire warrior troopers like any other in the cadre, and as they gained experience they rose to become chassis, veterans and squad leaders. Whereas most of their seasoned leaders eventually choose the great honour of donning a battlesuit, there are a few who instead prefer to remain with the fire warriors. For some, this is a practical realization that the tactical versatility required by crisis and stealth teams eludes them. For others, it is a simple preference to remain squarely situated with the heart of a Tau gunline. The military path that takes a soldier to become a cadre Fireblade can never rise as high as the rank of chassis. They are limited to a level just beneath that of chassel. Nor does the title carry with it the elan associated with those who wear a battlesuit. Nonetheless, Fireblades, or chassnel in the Tau language, is a highly respected role, not least because of their willingness to forgo prestige. The constant drilling and workmanlike efficiency of a Fireblade is, to the Tau, a willing embrace of their most beloved concept, the Tauva, the greater good. Fire Warriors. To be born into the Firecast is to be born for battle. Bred for generations to maximize size and strength, these warriors-to-be are enrolled in Firecast academies as soon as they can walk, institutions whose sole purpose is to produce soldiers to serve the growing Tau Empire. There they are rigorously prepared in mind and body to become fire warriors, the professional infantry that forms the backbone of the hunter cadres of every sept. It is said with pride that behind every fire warrior stands thousands of years of training in the military arts and instruction in the laws of the Code of Fire. Honour, obedience, duty, and self-sacrifice. Tau fire warriors are superbly equipped for battle, and a large part of their training is to acclimate themselves with the use of their high-tech gear. All fire warriors wear multi-layered body armour that provides defence against high-velocity or explosive rounds. Thanks to their mastery of metal fusions, the armour is lightweight, especially in comparison to conventional materials, such as those used by Orks or the Imperium. The enlarged sinistral shoulder pad is particularly useful, as fire warriors are trained to use this as a shield, often positioning it towards incoming fire to increase their protection. Their helmets contain a number of digitized aids, including sensors, target tracking readouts, air quality levels, and communication uplinks. The arsenal available to fire warriors is formidable, with individuals carrying either a pulse rifle or pulse carbine. With this advanced armament, fire warriors can lay down a withering fusillade upon their foes. Their range and hitting power outclasses the standard weapons of every race the Tau have yet encountered. Should their enemies advance too close, fire warriors are equipped with disc-like photon grenades, defensive devices which explode with a dazzling blast of multispectrum light to disorientate foes. Although their potent pulse weapons can penetrate the armour of light vehicles, against heavier armour, fire warriors often employ EMP grenades. These are technical marvels that send out an electromagnetic pulse on detonation which can overload electronic circuitry, causing anything from minor malfunctions to complete meltdowns. Fire warrior teams consist of between 6 and 12 warriors. A team leader, or chassis, is a veteran warrior whose experience has prepared him for command. A chassis can draw upon additional equipment to aid both the team and the cadre, such as drones or a marker light. Before the battle, the Chasseau will receive the orders for his Fire Warrior team via the relay comms, although due to the haphazard nature of war, these goals often change, and a Chasseau is expected to lead his team to fluidly react to every situation. The Firecast puts utmost importance on acting in a coordinated fashion upon the battlefield. Needless sacrifices or inadequately supporting nearby teams are considered great failures. Fire Warrior teams drill endlessly in setting up overlapping fields of fire and positioning themselves so that they can effectively protect other teams should they be attacked. Such rigorous training produces Fire Warriors to whom covering fire is second nature, able to send volleys of pulse fire at a foe closing upon their comrades with a single command flashed through the comm system. While a Fire Warrior team is formidable in its own right, an interlocking cadre of teams is even stronger than the sum of its parts. Such inter-unit dynamics have foiled many foes. During the Tau victories over the Orks during the Great War of Confederation, time and again the waves of greenskins almost closed with the Tau gun lines, only to find their final charge defeated by the literal wall of pulse fire that the combined teams discharged. It is a lesson that resounds through the Firecast academies. Only by supporting our comrades can we defeat the superior numbers of our foes. Pathfinders. Like reconnaissance units, Pathfinder teams are the eyes and ears of their commander in a way no drone can yet emulate. A Pathfinder's foremost role is not to engage the enemy, but instead to maximize the efficiency of the rest of their cadre. They operate ahead of their comrades, close to their foe, to accurately scout the enemy. In such a position, a Pathfinder's life is always under threat. For this reason, and more, Pathfinders are held in high regard by every caste. They are not protected by a battlesuit or stealth field generators, yet they are far from helpless. A Pathfinder's standard kit includes a pulse carbine, ideal for the close-ranged firefights they so frequently find themselves in. Pathfinders also bear marker lights to guide the firepower of the rest of the cadre against optimal targets. Holding a marker light on a distant enemy while your own position is being overrun is a selfless act, but Pathfinders epitomize the greater good, and by their actions many battles are won. To infiltrate the battlefield, they can also activate homing beacons or positional relays, bringing reinforcements to the fray with greater precision. Some teams also carry a few rail rifles, especially useful against power-armoured infantry. An even more recent addition to the Pathfinder's arsenal is the ion rifle, able to fire in two distinct modes. The ion rifle can vaporize light vehicles, but is unstable when overcharged. Many Pathfinder chasseaux employ drones, and in the Third Sphere expansion, new variants especially designed to assist Pathfinder teams have been developed. Trading lives for ground is anathema to the Tau, and the Firecast is trained to retreat and fight another day. While every sept has tales of crafty Pathfinders escaping against impossible odds, even the best laid extraction plans can fall through. All Tau warriors are willing to lay down their lives for the greater good, but Pathfinders find self-sacrifice called for more often than all other cadre teams combined. During the early days of the Great War of Confederation, some septs reported Pathfinder casualty rates at 84% or higher. Despite this, or perhaps because of it, the Firecast academies are inundated by volunteers wishing to be Pathfinders, eager to do their utmost for the greater good. Darkstrider, the shadow that strikes, the elusive, he that walks unseen. Despite his many heroics, there is something unsettling about Sub-Commander El Mayamato, the Tau more commonly called Darkstrider. Although all of the Firecast regard him as a cunning tactician and a warrior to be reckoned with, his unconventional methods and disregard for proper protocol have stirred up much trouble and made many internal enemies. It began when Darkstrider, a chasseau born on Mont'au, passed his trial by fire. Scorning the honour of donning a battlesuit to join the crisis teams, he was next offered the opportunity to join the stealth teams, a formation noted for its unorthodox methods. This choice, too, Darkstrider derided, preferring to return to the Pathfinder teams with which he had first served. Time and again, he led his team into the most deadly of situations, but always escaped, bringing glory to his cadre. It was he that shut down the strange mechanisms of the Necrons on the moon of Galactic, and he who hunted down the tri-headed beast that terrorized the mining colonies of Mont'au. During the Great Wars of Confederation, when the grim leader earned the name Darkstrider, he infiltrated Ork camps and used Markalites to pick out components of gargants under construction. It was his team that set the homing beacon on Warlord Gruzgut's mechanical armour. Yet for all his heroics, Darkstrider always spurned office to command, preferring instead to lead raiding missions and terror attacks behind enemy lines. Tradition is everything to the Firecast, and his adherence to the Code of Fire demands, above all things, respect for Ethereals, military rank, and more experienced warriors. Through declined promotions and subtle inflections when speaking to his superiors, Darkstrider regularly walks the fine line near insubordination, nearly unheard of in the Firecast. His commanders refuse to work with Darkstrider, claiming that he refuses counsel, yet others, most notably Shadowsun herself, value the sly tactics and obvious bravery of Darkstrider. Gifted with a prototype structural analyzer, Darkstrider has recently returned from his successes against the Space Marines in the Zeist campaign. His is not the way of the armoured battlesuit, but his ability to tie up more valuable forces and then slip away has contributed to a string of victories that none can deny. Devilfish. The Devilfish armoured troop carrier is the workhorse of the Tau ground forces, granting the Firecast infantry much-needed speed and tactical mobility. It can transport up to 12 fully armoured and armed fire warriors or pathfinders into battle in relative safety, and then provide mobile fire support once they disembark. The highly mechanised hunter cadres rely on the Devilfish to ensure that the fire warriors can travel and deploy quickly to wherever their gun lines are most required. Powered by a complex dual anti-grav and jet propulsion motive system, the Devilfish seems to glide over a planet's surface. The anti-grav engines generate a cushion for the Devilfish to float upon, and its armoured bulk is driven forward by two powerful multi-directional jet engines. By pivoting the propulsion units downwards, the Devilfish pilot can gain extra lift to clear obstacles, making the vehicle capable of boosting over obstacles and terrain that mundane tracked vehicles could never hope to traverse. Mobility is essential for any commander, and the Devilfish allows the infantry to keep pace with the armoured gunships, whether manoeuvring troops to deliver the killing offensive of a Mont'au, or rushing them into ideal firing positions to ensure a Kion ambush is properly set. The Devilfish is often the key to victory. But the Devilfish is not used merely to ferry troops to the battle lines. In addition to the fire of its burst cannon, the Devilfish is on hand to quickly extract troops should enemy formations penetrate too closely. Given the Tau's loathing of close combat, a common tactic is to redeploy their gun lines when enemy units approach too closely, whisking their troops out of harm's way to set up new firing perimeters elsewhere on the battlefield. This re-embarking and relocating tactic allows pathfinders to escape encirclement, and helps fire warriors to keep their foe at arm's length, better enabling them to whittle down the enemy with repeated volleys of pulse fire. A more aggressive ploy, employed by all septs but made famous by those from Viola sept, is a rapid delivery of fire warrior teams into close range with an enemy target. Although a risky proposition, this allows disembarking units to emerge from their Devilfish to shoot point blank into their foe. When it works effectively, they drive back or destroy the enemy. However, failure to do so leaves the Tau vulnerable to assaults. These rapid counterattacks are a hallmark of Tau tactics, and are often the final stroke in a well-planned Mont'au. Such ploys are made even more effective by working in conjunction with other elements of the cadre, such as combining with other supporting firepower, coordinating to arrive at the same moment as incoming battlesuits, or having pathfinders light up the target with marker lights. The Devilfish itself is armed with a burst cannon, an ideal weapon to add suppressive fire in defense of any nearby allies. 2 gun drones are also standard armament, able to lend the Devilfish their weight of fire, or detach on missions of their own. There are a number of upgrades that can augment the Devilfish, from seeker missiles for extra power to defensive options like decoy launchers or target shielding disruptive pods. The XV8 Crisis Battlesuit. The XV8 Crisis Battlesuit strikes a perfect balance between offensive capability, armoured protection, manoeuvrability and utility. It is a towering battlesuit, easily twice the size of the Fire Warriors who wear it. A wonder of Earthcast engineering, only the Tau could master the secrets of producing the dense nanocrystalline alloy that allows the thick protective armour of the XV8. When it comes to deflecting and withstanding damage, the XV8's armour is comparable to the ceramite used by the Imperium Space Marines, but weighs substantially less. Agile for its size, the XV8 is extremely manoeuvrable, as it mounts repulsor jet engines, another unique Earthcast innovation that combines the function of a jet with anti-gravitic technology. These powerful thrusters allow the XV8 to vault battlefield obstacles and to make bounding leaps to gain advantageous firing positions or to avoid incoming shots. By firing off the jets to slow descent, it is possible for a warrior in an XV8 Crisis battlesuit to make a combat drop, arriving to the battlefield suddenly by leaping from an airborne Orca or Manta craft. While its protective armour and mobility are highly valued by the Tau, it is the ability of the XV8 battlesuit to carry multiple weapons and support systems that make them so incredibly dangerous and versatile. Designed to compensate from the recoil of light weapons fire, the XV8's weapon loadout can be easily altered to reflect mission requirements or the pilot's own personal preference. Additional upgrades, from multi-tracker fire control systems to homing beacons or shield generators, further enhance the fighting abilities of this impressive battlesuit. To the Tau, the battlesuit is more than just a powerful weapon of war. It is also a symbol of great achievement. Only those fire warriors who prove themselves in battle earn the right to wear a battlesuit and bear the name Shadowsun. To do so is a great honour, and means the fire warrior has passed his trial by fire. This is the aspiration of every Firecast warrior, recognition of a mastery of the Code of Fire, and noble service to the greater good. The XV8 Crisis team is the most widely deployed of any Tau battlesuit formation, for they are the epitome of Tau warfare, mobile, flexible, and absolutely bristling with firepower. They are an elite force, and often form the cutting edge of a hunter cadra's attacks. They can be used as a powerful reserve held by the commander to counterattack against advancing foes or to deliver the final hammer blow that is unleashed to break the opposition once and for all. Trained to operate either alone or more commonly in teams of 2 or 3 warriors, Crisis teams can be equipped to handle a variety of battlefield roles. For instance, to combat vast numbers, a Crisis team might employ many burst cannons, as its high rate of fire is ideal for scything down lightly armoured infantry. Against more powerful or heavily armoured foes, the ceramite melting blasts fired from plasma rifles are preferable, while the close-ranged fusion blaster is unrivalled for tank hunting teams. Different septs have their own preferred weapon and support system fits in accordance with their prescribed tactics. For example, the Crisis teams from Viola have a predilection for what is called the Sunforge configuration. 3 XV8 Crisis battlesuits operating together in a formation known as Torocha, 3 minds as one. Each member of the Crisis team is armed with a twin-linked fusion blaster and target lock, a combination that turned an entire Lehman Russ tank company into piles of slag during the Tau counterattacks on Dalith. In the dense street fights amidst the ruins of Nimbosa, the Torluku sept employed a lone warrior in a battlesuit with a flamer, burst cannon, and Stimulant Injector, the Lone Hunter configuration, which proved the most effective means of driving the many Imperial Guard regiments out of their defensive barricades. It is customary for many commanders to choose some of the most experienced warriors from amongst the XV8 crisis teams to become their bodyguards, their Shasnami, or literally translated, close protection officers. Only those veteran fire warriors with impeccable battle records, who have reached the Shasvra level, are considered worthy to serve their commanders in such a capacity. Crisis bodyguard teams are amongst the most respected of all Firecast warriors, for they embody the philosophy of striving for the greater good. It is their duty to protect their commander at all costs. They will even take incoming shots intended for their leader. Tau battle lore is rife with heroic tales of individuals leaping in front of their commander to confront a monstrous beast, or in order to save him from a shot from some powerful energy weapon. Should it be necessary, an XV8 crisis bodyguard will sacrifice his own life in order to spare his commander from certain death. It is considered a great disgrace for a bodyguard to survive whilst his leader is slain. Any who suffer such indignity often spend their remaining lifetime atoning for that which can ultimately have no forgiveness. XV8 crisis bodyguard teams can draw upon the latest cutting-edge battlesuit war gear, prototypes that are still being tested for standard issue. Commander Dawnstar of the Dalif Sept keeps his bodyguard outfitted in the rare VX802 Crisis Iridium battlesuits, a luxury that few other commanders can arrange. Not surprisingly, the bolder a commander is, the shorter the lifespan of his XV8 Crisis bodyguard team. Those who favour leading from the front, such as serving as the bait in a Kion strategy, or as part of a hammer blow in a Mont'au, greatly increase their own risks. The hot-blooded commanders of Viola Sept most routinely recruit new bodyguards to replace those lost in battle. In response to this habitually aggressive approach, the master strategist Commander Puretide, who always preached of the importance of balance, would have repeated his oft-quoted remark: "A wise leader must learn when and where to use his every asset to its best capability." This wisdom recognizes that the commander, flanked by two elite Shasvra warriors in crisis battlesuit armor, is a formidable formation, more than capable of shrugging off enemy shots and dealing out prodigious amounts of firepower. However, the risk of losing such an important unit must always be weighed. The advancement of the battlesuit has mirrored the rate at which the Tau have expanded across the galaxy. The earliest prototypes were field-tested during the early stages of the First Sphere expansion, and although they were successful, their going was slow. The original fuel-powered T-series was quickly replaced with the V-series, which used fusion reaction, although radiation poisoning was still problematic. It wasn't until the end of this first period of rapid growth that battlesuit technology began to regularly appear within the hunter cadres. Not surprisingly, it was at these early stages that the Tau won their largest battles, as the elite formations began to refine their tactics to take advantage of what the armoured suits could do. At the start of the Second Sphere expansion, great strides had been made in battlesuit design, particularly in areas of power sources and increased weapon loadouts. By the end of this period, the repulsor jump jets came into their own, and the hunter cadres were conquering planets at a rate never before seen. At present, the battlesuit has never been more successful, and continual upgrades, different marks and variants, as well as new prototypes, are continually being developed. The XV-88 broadside. The decision to combine the deadly rail weapon technology of the Hammerhead gunship with the most successful of the Tau battlesuits, the XV-8 crisis suit, has produced the vaunted XV-88 broadside battlesuit. Designed to offer long-range support, the XV-88 broadside teams have exceeded expectations, becoming mainstays of the hunter cadres and tank killers of legendary proportions. Powered by a particle accelerator, a broadside's heavy rail rifle shot can penetrate the thickest plasteel bunkers often doing so with enough force to punch an exit hole on the other side as well. While the weapon carried by the XV-88 broadside is not as massive as the railgun mounted on the hammerhead, its range and destructive power are impressive nonetheless. In order to mount the twin-linked heavy rail rifle on a battlesuit, the Earthcast engineers had to modify the XV-8 battlesuit. Due to the increased weight of its weapon system, the XV-8's jetpack had to be removed, meaning the XV-88 broadside would trade its mobility and maneuverability in favour of increased weapon power and range. In prototype production, it was quickly noticed that the new battlesuit could not avoid incoming fire. So a further protective armour was added. Later modifications added stabilizers and recoil units to the XV-88, and recent Earthcast tinkering has moved the heavy rail rifles from a shoulder mount to a handheld position. The XV-88 broadside teams are deployed in groups of 1 to 3, and unlike most Tau units, require a static firing position. Commanders have learned to deploy these long-ranged killers with care, for it takes valuable time for them to reposition, and while doing so, their main armament is far less accurate. The secondary weapon, a smart missile system, was chosen to make up for this shortcoming. Deadly in its own right, the smart missile system can fire off a barrage at any target within sensor range, even those in cover or hidden out of sight. Those races that have faced the Tau in battle have grown to fear these heavily armoured battlesuits. During the Damocles Crusade, the first one, the XV-88 broadside was quickly identified by the Imperium as a major threat to armoured vehicles, whose soldiers learned to dread the whip-crack sound made by the hypersonic speed of a heavy rail rifle round. The distinct noise could only actually be heard after the shot had already hit home. In open terrain, like on Taros or the ice plains of Eisenheim, a few broadside teams were sufficient to negate entire tank companies, quickly turning them into smoking wreckage. In the battles against the Tyranid High Fleet Gorgon, the XV-88 broadside teams proved highly adaptive and effective in combating the larger alien creatures, especially after a refitting of their secondary weapons. The mounting of twin-linked plasma rifles in place of the twin-linked smart missile systems made the battlesuits even more effective when confronting the gargantuan biotitans of the Tyranids. Like all battlesuits, the XV-88 is worn by a veteran, and can be upgraded with sophisticated support systems. A great recent addition to the broadside arsenal came in the War of Confederation, when the heavy rail rifle was replaced with a twin-linked high-yield missile pod. During the initial setbacks, it was discovered that the mass of attacking Ork waves and the light nature of their vehicles meant the heavy rail rifle, although deadly, could not stem the overwhelming tide of attackers. The high-yield missile pod sacrificed some range and hitting power, but could lay down a greater barrage, and proved more than adequate to destroy the crude scrap-armoured vehicles. Since then, many commanders have included this variant in their cadres, either on its own or sometimes in a formation with more traditionally armed broadsides. Stealth teams. Stealth teams are special operations units that are the lone wolves of the army, typically operating independently of the cadre. Theirs is a secretive way of war as they infiltrate enemy lines, seeking vulnerable targets to destroy. In order to pass unseen into enemy territory, stealth teams use light-bending disruption technology embedded in their sleek battlesuits to camouflage themselves. Additionally, cloaking fields deaden sound and shield them from heat-detective sensors, allowing them to penetrate deep into hostile regions before launching precisely timed ambushes. Suddenly appearing as if stepping out from nowhere, a stealth team unleashes a hail of gunfire to cripple or eliminate their selective targets. The key to stealth teams is the technology behind their XV-15 and XV-25 stealth battlesuits. Only slightly more bulky than the armour worn by fire warriors, these stealth suits have integral stealth field generators that project from nodes situated about the body armour, They surround their bearer with a distortion effect that plays havoc with a full spectrum of light and confounds other detection devices, allowing warriors wearing such armour to move untracked, blending in with their surrounding environment. Because it is hard to focus on their location, a stealth team can hide to at least some degree, even when standing in open territory. In areas of cover, such as forests or the rubble of an embattled city, they can effectively fade into the background, making themselves extremely difficult targets for enemies to mark out or lock onto effectively. Built of the same dense nanocrystalline alloys as the larger XV8 crisis suits, the stealth suit is equipped with a powerful burst cannon as standard. For added firepower, some teams upgrade specific members to carry a fusion blaster, as these short-ranged weapons are better for engaging heavily armoured targets or vehicles. If a Shasvra is present, he can bring additional equipment such as a marker light, a drone, or even a homing beacon to allow XV8 crisis teams to more accurately deploy. Some septs, most notably Tashvar, are known to employ stealth teams outfitted with marker drones. This is a tactic common against large orc hordes, as the stealth teams use their burst cannons to thin the enemy numbers before painting them with marker lights, allowing the rest of the cadre to wipe them out. Once their ambush is sprung, the stealth teams use their jetpacks to make bounding leaps, moving either to acquire another target or to put obstacles in the way of any return fire. Due to the nature of their covert role in battle, stealth teams enjoy a level of independence that is rare in town military operations. Observing comm silence and unable to receive orders, stealth teams are typically left to make their own decisions. Those chasseaux who volunteer for such duty are seen as strange and unpredictable lot who do not always follow convention. Traits are generally regarded with much suspicion in the well-regimented and highly structured culture of the Tau. Those who survive long enough to earn the title of Shasvra within the stealth teams are, without exception, noted as eccentrics, famous for their tactical innovations and daring raids deep behind enemy lines. Many a foe of the Tau Empire has learned to be weary of the technologically blurred battlesuits that appear in their midst. During the Taros campaign, roving stealth teams wreaked havoc with Imperial supply lines, sowing panic and confusion, and sabotaging their advance before fading back into cover. Entire divisions of Imperial Guard were taken off the front lines in desperate attempts to hunt them down. XV95 Ghost Keel Battlesuits. Huge and all but impossible to detect until it strikes, the XV95 Ghost Keel is a highly effective terror weapon. It mounts an array of repulsor jets upon its carapace, is equipped with an arsenal of heavy weaponry, and is supported by a wealth of high-tech hardware and counter-sensory warfare suites. XV95s can tear apart entire armoured squadrons and massacre enemy infantry in sudden ambushes. The firestorm of their onslaught so furious that the foe believes a whole army must be attacking them from an unexpected quarter. Each Ghost Keel is piloted by a single Shasvra, a former XV25 stealth team veteran. This focused individual is supported by an AI that assists them in operating the Ghost Keel's many complex systems and monitors their physical and psychological well-being during extended operations. As Ghost Keel pilots spend long periods isolated in enemy territory, many form unusually strong bonds with their battlesuit AI. In some cases, these warriors come to prefer the company of their suit's AI to that of others. XV104 Riptide. Since the start of the Third Sphere expansion, rumours of a new heavy class of battlesuits had spread throughout the ranks of the Firecast. There was initially no appearance of this long-awaited latest prototype, but that changed during mankind's first big showdown with the Imperium of Mankind on the imperial planet of Agrellan. The human armies had amassed and dug in to protect their hive world, a situation that normally called for the Tau to concentrate on other, less fortified worlds. However, as the gateway planet to the whole of the coveted Dovar system, Agrellan was a keystone no invader could afford to bypass. Its orbit blocked the best route through the largely impassable Damocles Gulf, and so it had to be taken. The Imperial defensive positions surrounding each hive were formidable. Heavy walls topped at regular intervals with ferro-concrete bunkers overlooking the open wastelands. These killing fields were strewn with impenetrable tank traps and gravity mines. Should the Tau force their way through these perimeters, or simply airdrop within the fortified rings, they would find themselves within the claustrophobic and twisting streets of the great hive itself. There, specially prepared blockades and defensive citadels awaited the unweary, with infantry and armour garrisoned within to launch counterattacks. It was a planet entirely given over to defending itself, its whole population geared either for war or for war production. To crack this formidable planet and open up the more vulnerable systems beyond, Shadowsun herself planned and launched the assault. 20 hunter cadres would simultaneously strike key hive nodes, and at the vanguard of each strode the cutting edge of Earth-cast weapons technology and the pinnacle of their battlesuit development, the XV-104 Riptide. At long last, the largest battlesuit prototype yet created by the Earth-cast was unleashed. The ground assault began, perfectly coinciding with entire shoals of Sunshark bombers streaking overhead and numerous distracting attacks launched by forward-positioned stealth and Pathfinder teams. As the massed hammerheads and skyborne mantas rained fire on the enemy line, the Riptides at the fore came under attack. Enemy shells exploded harmlessly off their armoured shells as each Riptide brought its arsenal to bear upon the defenders. The heavy burst cannon, the Riptide's standard main armament, raked the walls, stitching patterns of death that cut guardsmen in two. Missiles from the Riptide's secondary weapon systems and from its accompanying shielded missile drones blazed outwards, leaving contrails as they streaked into the enemy's ranks. To the rear, those Riptides outfitted with ion accelerators showed off the range and hitting power of their prototype weapons, destroying battle tanks and blowing chunks out of the reinforced bunkers. Amidst the rain of incoming ordnance and the blossoming of explosions, the distinctive thrumming sound of Riptides overcharging their Nova reactors could be heard. The very air crackled with electric pulses due to the sheer energy generated by these indomitable power packs. The massed guns of the Imperial Guard targeted the giant battlesuits, but to little avail. Near the gates of the Prime Hive, a battery of incoming Deathstrike missiles momentarily lit the battlefield as they crashed into the Tau lines. For a long moment, it seemed as if both sides paused, only for an XV-104 Riptide, protected by its Nova Shield, to emerge from the flaming crater, black scorch marks marring its armour, all it had to show for its brush with destruction. Upon reaching the walls, the Riptides either engaged their jetpacks to hurdle the impediment, or stepped through the breaches made by repeated blasts from their ion accelerators. With fire warriors advancing at their feet, the streets of every hive on Agrellan soon ran red with blood. Their defences and spirits broken, guardsmen fled their posts in a complete rout. Only the lenient surrender terms offered by the Watercast saved an all-out massacre. Before the sun set, except for a few desperate pockets that would soon be wiped out, the planet belonged to the Tau, who would rename the planet Mugaloth Bay. Later it would serve as the foundation of a new sept. So began the auspicious debut of the highly anticipated XV-104 Riptide. A wonder of Earth-cast engineering, it stands twice as tall as the XV-8 Crisis Suit, but its movements are more like those of its smaller cousin than the mechanical stiffness displayed by Imperial walkers with their crude servo motors. While the Riptide is huge and bears a number of weapon and support systems, it is still a battlesuit worn and controlled by a lone warrior. Production of the Riptide has proven slow. The materials for the dense nanocrystalline alloy armour are difficult to obtain, and the sheer volume required ensures that the XV-104 is a rare commodity. The honour of wearing such a mighty battlesuit is only given to those who have nobly served their commanders as crisis battlesuit bodyguards. To assist its wearer, the Riptide bears a sophisticated AI system, complete with a multi-tracker and numerous comlinks to keep the pilot patched into the cadre's commander. The Riptide is often supported by a pair of shielded missile drones, a new drone configuration, each equipped with a missile pod and a shield generator. The heavy battlesuit development initiative can be traced back to the massive Ork invasion of Viola. The Firecast had long issued requests for a heavier class of battlesuit, one more capable of standing up to the increasingly powerful weaponry they were facing. Although crudely designed and built, the Tau could not help but be impressed with the amount of firepower that the primitive Ork stompers and mountainous gargants could produce. During the battles in the Damocles Gulf, the Firecast faced the full fury of the deployed might of the Imperium of mankind, pitting their own weaponry against super-heavy tanks and Imperial Titans for the first time. For a race used to holding technological superiority, the sheer power of these aliens was eye-opening. The Tau way of war stresses mobility over mass attacks and hit-and-run tactics over entrenched positions. The wise commander is not daunted by foes that outnumber his own troops many times over, nor is he dismayed by the sheer size of the crude war machines their foes might deploy. Coordinated tactics, tight discipline, and a well-enacted battle plan can overcome such minor advantages. However, even Commander Puretide, the ultimate master of the balanced attack, freely admitted that the creation of a heavier class of battlesuits with upgraded size and armour would better enable cadres to withstand the prodigious firepower that was regularly directed at them. Yet, despite such worthy requests, all Earthcast attempts resulted in failure. Earlier prototypes were ponderous machines, not fit to enact the tactics of the Code of Fire. Or they subjected their wearer, or the planet on which he stood, to risks beyond measure. What finally made the XV-104 possible was the Nova Reactor, an experimental power pack that fuses dark matter, producing energy on scales close to small suns, than conventional engines. Such devices have been used to empower the mighty fleets of the Aircast, but until recently it could not be reduced to a suitable size. Although still in the prototype stage, the Nova Reactor has proven largely stable, despite some problems in safely releasing the vast energies it produces. The Riptide's higher functions can draw upon this almost unlimited source of power, but not without some risk. While attempting to utilize its shield, boost its jetpack, or charge any of its weapons, the XV-104 Riptide can suffer dangerous power vents, capable of wounding or even killing its pilot. KV-128 Stormsurge Ballistic Suit. This brand new addition to the arsenal of the Tau Empire is a towering engine, but they are not, in fact, battlesuits at all, but are instead an asset of war the Tau designate as ballistic suits. Stormsurges are ponderous bipedal weapon platforms, mobile bastions, possessed of great armoured resilience and phenomenal firepower that can change the outcome of battle in seconds. Designed to meet Titan-level threats, these walking gun towers can anchor battle lines and dominate swathes of the field with blistering volleys of fire, utilizing weapons normally only seen mounted on spacecraft. The Stormsurge is operated by a carefully selected pairing of veteran hammerhead gunship crew, who have graduated through the ballistic suit academies on Borkan and other septs. The prestige of operating a ballistic suit is not equal to that of donning the hero's mantle, but the steely-eyed graduates of the so-called Vash, or Giant Maker Academy, are honoured by the rest of the Firecast for the countless lives they save and terrible damage they inflict. Working as a seamless team, one pilots the Stormsurge while the other monitors, aims and fires its weapon systems. Sniper Drone Teams. Ensconced in cover far from the front lines of battle, A Farsight marksman scans the battlefield, using advanced optical sights to select prime targets. Above him float the rest of his team, a group of sniper drones, each of them equipped with an underslung, long-shot pulse rifle. Sniper drone teams are a deadly addition to any cadre, as they are adept at picking off enemy leaders or eliminating key infantry men, such as those carrying heavy weapons. Although the sniper drones are equipped with impressive artificial intelligence, it is the Farsight marksman, a Chasselar, who is the brains behind the operation. He is masked by a small stealth field generator, meaning that he can secrete himself into dense terrain, where he will blend in, minimizing the threat of return fire. The marksman is equipped with a drone controller, with which he commands his deadly charges, seeking out the most vulnerable quarry. Sniper drones are modified from the standard drones, for they carry a long-shot pulse rifle and stabilizing fins, as well as their own mini-stealth field generators. The long-shot pulse rifle is a lethal weapon that can send its plasma pulse over a great distance. A well-placed shot is capable of taking out any target, and there are many accounts of sniper drone teams single-handedly throwing enemy forces into disarray, with their ability to rain down sniper fire from long range. When fighting against the humans attempting raids in the Pardus Rift, a lone sniper drone team claimed an entire Terminator squad. Each member shot directly through the less armoured eye lenses of their helmets. That seems a bit exaggerated, no? Many commanders station sniper drone teams behind their own gun lines, as this affords extra protection for Fire Warrior or XV-88 broadside teams. Others use sniper drone teams to dominate open territory, deploying them in positions that overlook swathes of the battlefield, often covering the approach towards intervening friendly units. Thanks to their anti-gravitic jets, the sniper drones can move, momentarily steady themselves, shoot at their quarry, and then move back behind cover, making them very hard to target with ranged weapons. This particular technique was used to perfection in the battle against High Fleet Gorgon on Kel Shen, with the threat of fire from massed banks of sniper drones causing even the largest Tyranid monstrosities to cease their headlong charges and instead attempt to move through cover. Farsight marksmen are equipped with a pulse pistol in case a foe attempts to close with them, and more importantly, a marker light. This is used to support nearby comrades or to launch seeker missiles, although some marksmen prefer to keep themselves out of the line of fire, exposing only their drones to incoming shots. A marksman can command up to 9 sniper drones, but when fielding that many, it is common to add additional controllers. Should all marksmen on the team be slain, the sniper drones have enough AI to continue the fight. And Earthcast engineers have been amazed to arrive upon a battlefield many hours after its conclusion to find the sniper drones still hovering on duty, their sniping rifles still turning, looking for new targets. Piranhas. The Piranha is a lightly armoured skimmer, a mobile weapons platform that is capable of great speed and manoeuvrability. Using its jet thrusters and anti-gravitic engine, the Piranha glides over a planet's surface, its twin pilots well able to hug the terrain and make the best use of any cover. Along with a nose-mounted main armament, the Piranha carries 2 drones, either retained on the vehicle to add firepower or detached into AI mode to perform some other mission. On the battlefield, Piranhas often seem to be everywhere at once, hurtling over friendly troops to counterattack approaching infantry, facing along the flanks to launch devastating enfilades at enemy armour, or striking from behind cover to destroy vulnerable foes. After so many training drills that stress using coordinated attacks and mutual fire support, Fire Warriors are well accustomed to the thrum of a Piranha soaring just over their heads, and they no longer turn to follow the sudden swoosh of air as they streak past. Piranhas are used in a wide variety of capacities, and formations range in size from lone vehicles to a team of up to 5 working in conjunction. The larger schools of these deadly skimmers can use their burst cannons to annihilate enemy infantry units, while smaller formations are ideal for eradicating scouts or countering enemy teleporters. Lone piranhas that are equipped with a deadly fusion blaster are proficient hunters of enemy tanks. Using its speed, the skimmer will attempt to maneuver so as to target tanks in their more vulnerable side and rear armour. During an attack run, piranhas are a blur of motion, and the crews are more likely to trust their speed and jinking ability over any amount of armour. Piranhas have the ability to bring firepower quickly to wherever it is needed, but they are even more dangerous when working in conjunction with Pathfinder teams. Using marker lights, the Pathfinders often set up piranha runs, ensuring that the skimmer's volley of fire is as devastating as possible. In return, Pathfinders that find themselves in danger of being overrun request quick strikes by piranha teams to help wipe out approaching enemies, or at least buy time for the Pathfinders to reposition. The most famous piranha pilot was Gue'vesa from the Viola Sept, who claimed over 1,000 kills during his service fighting for the Tau Empire. His most famous victory, however, occurred after his retirement from the front lines to a training position. An Ork invasion thrust Gue'vesa back into the battle when the Greenskins attacked Viola's largest moon. Only Gue'vesa's half-trained piranha cadre stood between the mechanized Greenskin army and the destruction of the vital food-producing moon base. With Gue'vesa leading the way, the piranha squadrons darted in interweaving patterns to attack the columns of ramshackle Ork vehicles. Piranhas with burst cannons concentrated on the lightly armoured bikes and truck transports, while fusion blaster-equipped skimmers dealt with the heavily plated battle wagons and tanks. The Orks broke off their drive towards the Earthcast agri-centres and attempted to engage Gue'vesa's piranha teams. In the ensuing battle, the agile skimmers feinted and fled, setting the Orks up for repeated counterattacks. The Greenskins finally broke when, even while losing control of his crippled piranha, the Elder Tau steered his vehicle straight into the war boss's battle wagon, causing it to erupt in flames. Gue'vesa's unstinting skill and sacrifice were noted, and he was posthumously named a Hero of the Empire. Sun Shark Bombers. Due to their unique fighting tendencies and highly immobile nature, hunter cadres do not use artillery in the conventional sense that most armies do. Instead, in association with the Earthcast, they have developed the Sun Shark Bomber, a sleek, atmospheric aircraft that is capable of sweeping down from the skies and blasting ground targets with its potent payload. Sun Shark bombers come equipped with a pulse bomb generator, which produces a ball of deadly plasma beneath the aircraft. At the pilot's command, the pulsed induction field propels the glaring energy ball towards targets on the battlefield below. Sizzling the air around it, the pulse bomb explodes on the ground with an incandescent fury, spreading destruction over a wide radius. A shoal of Sun Shark bombers flying in tight formation can blast apart even the most surging of Ork wars with a single flyover. An extremely effective weapon, once fired, the pulse bomb generator immediately begins to form another destructive charge. Sometimes, however, a persistent glitch from its prototype days results in a power failure, meaning the Sun Shark cannot drop further bombs until the engineers can reconfigure the micro power plant. With this in mind, the Sun Shark has also been equipped with several other weapons, including a pair of Seeker missiles. Many a desperate Pathfinder or Fire Warrior team owe their continued existence to these airborne Seeker missiles, which they call in using their marker lights. Their ability to strike enemy vehicles or make short work of armoured infantry with the help of nearby air support greatly increases their chances of survival. The Sun Shark also bears a tail-mounted missile pod, which can be upgraded to a twin-linked version, as well as a nose-mounted networked marker-light to line up bombing runs. To ensure the Sunshark survives long enough to deliver its bombing run, the vehicle is equipped with a pair of wing-mounted interceptor drones. Each armed with a powerful twin-linked ion rifle, interceptor drones can either stay attached to the Sunshark, where they act like turret-mounted weapons, or they can detach from the flyer and serve as an escort. When disembarking from a Sunshark bomber, the interceptor drones position themselves to intervene between the bomber and any incoming fighters. They also have the ability to boost their jets, giving them a rare burst of speed that allows interceptor drones to better position themselves to lock on to aerial targets and attempt to blast them out of the sky. Few enemy flyers are capable of withstanding the vaporizing effects of the ion rifle, and some interceptor drones have racked up impressive kill totals, a source of bragging rights for the Sunshark's aircast pilots, if not for the AI-powered drones themselves. Razor Shark Strike Fighters. To the fire warriors forming the front ranks of a firing line, there are few sights more gratifying than seeing a Razor Shark strike fighter swoop out of the cloud cover and streak over enemy formations. Built along a design pattern modified from the Sunshark bomber, the Razor Shark forgoes the interceptor drone in favour of additional manoeuvring thrusters, and it trades the pulse bomb generator for a fearsome quad-ion turret. A formidable weapon, the quad-ion turret is ideal for turning light vehicles into twisted wrecks. Although it makes the weapon slightly unstable when fired on its overcharge mode, the quad-ion turret can produce an enormous blast radius that consumes entire squads with a single shot. During the Tyranid invasion on the Sept world of Kelshan, the aliens quickly grew weary of the dominating Tau air attacks. High in the atmosphere, the super-heavy Manta blasted away the flying terrors, while just above the planet's surface swept the Sunshark bombers, their pulse bombs breaking up the swarming Hormigaunt attacks. While the Tau's entire aerial arsenal played a part, it was the Razor Shark strike fighters that took the highest toll on their foe. Streaking back and forth over the battlefront, the Razor Sharks relentlessly targeted the Tyranid warriors, the beams from their quad-ion turrets easily penetrating the Tyranids' thick, chitinous armour. After one of the Razor Shark's attack runs, entire squads of the elite alien warriors would be left in ruin, their half-melted bodies continuing to sizzle long after their deaths. A fast-moving craft, the Razor Shark was able to seek out and destroy the brains of the invasion. Whether they attempted to lurk far behind the front lines, or chose to surround themselves with intervening lesser creatures, the Razor Shark was manoeuvrable enough to hunt them down. When infiltrators such as lictors or raveners emerged to threaten the fire warriors, the Razor Sharks could swiftly fly back to target the beasts, minimizing both the harm and the distraction of such attacks. The Razor Shark strike fighter can engage enemy flyers, but the craft was purposely built as a ground support attack craft, a role in which it excels. Its success is evident from the craft's ever-growing popularity with the fire warriors that it flies above. In addition to its main armament, each Razor Shark is loaded out with a nose-mounted burst cannon. For further support, it also carries 2 Seeker missiles. These can be auto-fired by the Razor Shark's aircast pilot himself, but are more effective when launched by a ground unit that has painted its target with a marker light. The Tau doctrine of war places great importance on dominating the airways above any battlefield they deploy to. It is their commonly held belief that controlling the skies is the first step in winning the engagement. By making the elimination of enemy flyers a priority, ground troops are allowed to concentrate on their targets without having to concern themselves with any threat from above. This strategy thereby enables the Tau to make full use of their mobile ground support assets. With no enemy flyers to worry about, the Sunshark shoals are better able to line up their devastating bombing runs, while Razor Sharks fly circles around enemy infantry or armour, using the range and potent hitting power of their quad-ion weapons to pick off foes from beyond the range of most return fire. With full aerial supremacy, the Tau are free to concentrate their flexible firepower when and how they need to, efficiently isolating and destroying enemy assets one by one. In the hands of an experienced commander, the fine-tuned coordination of air attacks in the skies above the battlefield can make a hunter cadre very adaptable and extremely lethal. Hammerhead gunships. Like a hungry predator on the prowl, the Hammerhead gunship is a menacing sight. It skims over the planet's surface with its massive turret-mounted gun, swiveling back and forth to track potential targets. The Hammerhead gunship is the main battle tank of the Tau, and all enemies who have encountered it quickly grow to respect, if not outright fear, the might of its main armament, the dreaded railgun. The railgun is a linear accelerator that uses superconductive electrodes to project a solid shot at hypersonic speeds. The vast kinetic energy generated by the round on impact has devastating effects, even at long range. The Hammerhead can also carry sophisticated submunitions, a shot full of smaller projectiles used for suppressive fire against soft targets. For close-range protection, the Hammerhead carries a pair of gun drones, although at need, these can be switched to full AI mode and detached from the tank to carry out their own missions. Some Hammerheads do not carry a railgun as their main weapon, but instead use the ion cannon, a unique Tau innovation that shoots an ionic beam that explodes upon contact with its enemy. Ideal for use against light vehicles and heavily armoured infantry, the ion cannon can also be overcharged. While this risks a dangerous overload, it results in a larger blast capable of destroying even more targets. It is common to find at least a few Hammerheads deployed in support of Fire Warrior teams. Although well armoured, the Hammerhead is often kept at a distance to take advantage of the superior range of its weapons. There are many accounts of single Hammerheads demolishing enemy armour with almost contemptuous ease. During the Damocles Crusade, the Hammerhead gained a particularly fearsome reputation amongst the Imperial Guard. Entire armoured companies were destroyed before they could close with the Tau battle lines, and whole offensives were transformed into fields of wreckage by the formidable Hammerhead gunship. Not to be denied their advance, the humans massed their remaining armour and sent them all against the Tau line, seeking to overwhelm them with sheer numbers. But the Tau are veteran Ork fighters, and they are well accustomed to such tactics. The Imperial tanks were met by well-placed armoured interdiction cadres, formations of Hammerheads and Skyrays. Although outnumbered at least 5-1, the superior range and armour-penetrating ability of the Hammerhead, along with its ability to quickly reposition into cover or advance into a better firing position, more than made up the difference. By the campaign's end, Imperial tank regiments were utterly demoralised as they grimly calculated their odds of survival. They would never leave cover without first thoroughly scanning the horizon for the Hammerhead's distinctive shape. Although the Hammerhead gunship performs well in tank duels, the combined arms approach of the Tau requires much more from their main battle tank than just anti-armour capability. It was the legendary commander Puretide who said, "Even the most rampant horde attack can be broken through application of firepower, and the submunition blasts of the railgun can rip enough bloody gaps in charging formations to halt an incoming war or smash an entire wave of lesser Tyranids." Fire Warrior and Pathfinder teams often work closely with Hammerheads, mutually supporting each other and frequently using marker lights to guide the gunship's powerful shots towards priority targets. Long Strike, Hammerhead Pilot, Gunship Ace, Titan Slayer, Terror of the Tross, Hero of Tau. Master Gunship Pilot Shasla Tau Sheneng, now better known as Long Strike, has quickly become the Firecast's most heralded tank ace. Since his first training session, he exhibited an almost innate ability to handle a Hammerhead. With the start of the Third Sphere expansion, his skills were soon put to the ultimate test in the heat of battle. It was on Tross that the young Hammerhead pilot earned the name Longstrike and got his first taste of the repugnant ways in which humans fight their wars. As part of an armoured interdiction cadre, he was assigned to a contingent fighting in the western deserts. There, over the arid flatlands, the hammerhead gunships clashed for days against the full might of the Imperial Guard's Lehman Russ companies. For all their smoke-spewing and crude design, the human battle tanks were dangerous, even more so as they outnumbered the Tau armour by at least 6-1. Early in the engagement, Longstrike showed poise and a remarkable aim, making every shot count until the horizon was littered with fiery wrecks. Yet the battle was costly for the Tau as well. All of Longstrike's bondmates, those who had undergone the version of the Talisera, unique to gunship pilots, were slain. The human tankers showed no remorse, grinding their heavy tracks over wounded Tau or even their own troops in their eagerness to press the attack. Longstrike continued to battle steadily, backing his hammerhead away to put intervening terrain between himself and incoming fire. With every discharge of his railgun, smoke blossomed from another Lehman Russ in the distance. The tank duel went on until a school of razor-shark strike fighters flew over to finish off the attackers, and Longstrike's legend was born. In the ongoing battles that marked the Imperium's retreat from Tross, Longstrike continued to cull the Imperial armour, including a famous headshot that felled a mighty Warhound Titan. Due to his unerring aim, Longstrike has chosen to trial the new XVO2 pilot battlesuit. With its upgraded interface, he could become one with his vehicle, reacting instantaneously alongside various AI functions within the hammerhead. He would also be able to make better use of incoming Markerlight data, enabling him to lock onto targets with ever greater accuracy. He could support nearby teams in ways that vehicles, even those equipped with targeting relays, never could before. The combination of Longstrike's formidable skills and the XVO2 battlesuit have made him deadlier than ever. Redeployed for the major battle on Mugaloth Bay, Longstrike destroyed innumerable gun and bunker emplacements along the Imperial line. As the fighting moved into the narrow hive streets, Longstrike's lightning-fast reactions allowed him to destroy infantry attempting to emerge from cover and attack the surrounding fire warriors. Before the last pockets of resistance were wiped out, word of the hammerhead pilot, who could not miss, had spread across the Firecast. By that time, Longstrike was already on board a transport for the next engagement of the Third Sphere expansion. Sky Ray Gunships. The Sky Ray Missile Defense Gunship is a specialized variant of the Hammerhead that replaces its turret gun with an array of deadly Seeker missiles. Originally designed to neutralize enemy aircraft, the Sky Ray has also proven its value in a combined arms approach. The Sky Ray's missiles can be fired directly by the vehicle, or they may be launched by an independent ground operator aimed at an enemy lit up by a Markerlight. In this way, Pathfinders or Fire Warrior teams that don't carry their own heavy weaponry can still have instant access to the Sky Ray's potent Seeker missiles, firing them remotely through the network. On the battlefield, a Sky Ray is a grav tank that glides behind the front lines, using its twin Markerlights to sweep the horizon, seeking to find and lock on to either ground or airborne targets. Should enemy targets be acquired, the crew can launch a Seeker missile, a deadly rocket that streaks away faster than the eye can follow. If the target is light infantry, not worthy of one of the limited Seeker missiles, the Sky Ray will instead use its pair of Markerlights to light up the foe, making them easier prey for the guns of nearby fire warriors. The crew of the Sky Ray rely heavily on their interactions with the forward infantry teams and are in constant contact with them, coordinating fire and determining the viability of targets. The Sky Ray was first developed and deployed towards the end of the Damocles Crusade and served as a counter to the Imperium's air power. Thanks to its velocity tracker, the Sky Ray could lock its missiles onto any target it could see, including the fast-moving flyers of the Imperial Navy. The Seeker missiles that they carry are so fast that many enemy pilots are hit and down before they can even take evasive maneuvers. During the Taros campaign, enemy pilots dubbed the vehicle the Stingray or Stinger, and they came to value confirmed Skyray kills above all others. During the Great War of Confederation, so many Ork bombers were lost due to the Skyray barriers positioned around Tau cities that even the daredevil Ork pilots soon refused to enter what they termed Death Alley. Yet the Skyray is not only deadly to flyers, as many enemy tanks have learned. Even enemy commanders have found themselves suddenly lit with marker lights and then targeted by Seeker missiles. Several notable Space Marine heroes were thus obliterated during their recent offensive in the Zeist sector. For its second weapon system, the Skyray is usually equipped with a pair of gun drones. For increased firepower, these gun drones can be replaced with a twin-linked burst cannon or a twin-linked smart missile system. Many Skyray crew prefer the SMS as it provides a high degree of close-range protection, and its self-guided missiles allow the Skyray to make maximum use of cover, sometimes never exposing itself to return fire. For all their effectiveness, Skyrays are rarely encountered in large numbers. Generally, a single vehicle is attached to a hunter cadre, or deployed near vulnerable locations such as air bases or power generators. With Pathfinders far out front, the Skyray is typically positioned behind the main battle line of fire warriors. In this way, it provides an effective air defence, while still being able to provide the infantry supporting fire against ground targets. It is not unusual to find a Skyray as support for an armoured interdiction cadre, although some septs prefer to field impressive sky shields. A trio of Skyrays, whose interlocking marker lights and extensive arsenal of missiles provide an umbrella of protection to the ground forces below. Drone Squadrons. Tau make extensive use of machine intelligences called drones, and the variant most commonly seen fighting alongside the Firecast is known as the gun drone. Although small and somewhat innocuous, those foes that underestimate the gun drones often pay for such a costly mistake with their lives. Using anti-gravitic motors and jet thrusters, gun drones hover over the landscape, rotating back and forth as their sensor vane transmits vital information about their surroundings. Should an enemy be encountered, the gun drones accelerate to greater speed, skimming quickly into firing position, their underslung twin-linked pulse carbines swivelling to unload their firepower upon the acquired target. The sleek gun drone is well armoured, highly mobile, and its programming can cope with any number of battlefield roles. When grouped into a squadron, gun drones can produce a withering fusillade of fire, a hailstorm of deadly plasma bursts to support fire warriors and bolster defence lines. Because of their speed and mobility, some commanders choose to send gun drone squadrons on seek and destroy missions, unleashing disc-shaped killing machines to advance along a flank, overwhelming enemy scout patrols or even light vehicles. As their jet thrusters allow them to slow their descent, it is possible to deploy a gun drone squadron to Manta or Orca super heavy dropships, literally dropping the drones above the battlefield. The sudden appearance of a unit of gun drones appearing from nowhere with twin-linked pulse carbines blazing can disrupt the best-laid enemy plans and force them to reposition valuable assets. A remarkable feat of Earthcast engineering, the artificial intelligence of drones increases when they are networked together into squadrons, greatly ramping up their processing speed and ability for independent action. Such squadrons have no need for Tau controllers and are capable of impressive tactical feats. It is common to see gun drone squadrons using their ability to shoot and then moving back to cover to tie up and antagonize enemy units. Other gun drone squadrons stalk enemy vehicles, using their mobility to swing round and target the more vulnerable side or rear armour. Some gun drones in a squadron can be upgraded to carry a marker light or possibly a shield generator. In very rare instances, entire squadrons have been so altered, such as the shield drone barrier used with some success in the great tank duels of the Almeth Plains, or Commander Shadowsun's barrage of marker lights that help wipe out the Ork infantry ensconced in the ruins of Chanel Colony. So deep do the Tau believe in the greater good that even their drones are programmed with self-preservation protocols. In the face of what the AI deems to be hopeless odds, the drones will attempt to escape, while at need, drone squadrons may be used in high-risk missions or purposefully moved to block enemy paths towards the fire warriors. The Tau do not consider drones to be disposable, and the drone artificial intelligence will analyze every possibility in order to ensure its own survival. The Tau are always intrigued, and more than a little disturbed, to be faced with the Imperium of man's deep-seated and abiding prejudice against machine intelligences. The Earthcast in particular cannot fully understand the sheer abhorrence that humans reserve for machines that can think for themselves. To them, the artificial intelligence drones are just another technological tool to use for the advancement of the greater good. For the Tau, the drones save time and lives, and to regard machine intelligences with suspicion is yet another example of the backward, barbaric superstitions they must overcome. Alien Auxiliaries. As the Tau Empire has expanded, a number of alien races have been incorporated into it. They will often be relocated from their homeworlds, en masse, to somewhere deeper within the Empire, where they can be re-educated and brought fully into the arms of the Tau Empire and serve the greater good more thoroughly. The following are three of the more notable examples, although there are many more. These three are the most prominent and the most likely to be encountered by Imperial forces. Gue'vesa, human helpers. A startling number of human worlds have fallen to the Tau. These range from feral backwaters, frontier worlds, to even hive worlds. Some joined willingly, falling to the silver tongues of Tau emissaries. Others fell in war, and the survivors were left with a stark choice: either serve their entire lives as prisoners of war, or join with the Tau. Inculcated within the beliefs of the Tau'va, the greater good, these humans now consider themselves proud members of the Tau Empire and gladly serve in the military. Alternatively, a number of humans have been brought into the Tau Empire following war. These are soldiers, primarily of the Imperial Guard, who were left with little choice. Some might say, although for me, choosing to join with the Xenos is a sin that is unforgivable. Nevertheless, many did join, with the stark choice being a lifetime of imprisonment or simply accepting a new way of life. After suitable re-education, these soldiers will go on to serve in the Tau Empire again, utilizing the skills they learned in the armies of the Emperor to serve the greater good. With the fall of a Grellan hive recently, there has been a large influx of such soldiers who surrendered during the battle for the world following the Tau victory. Also, earlier, during the First Damocles Gulf Crusade, a large number of the Brimlock Dragoons were captured alive and again offered the choice: serve or die imprisoned. Many of them and their children serve today. They are primarily equipped with standard Imperial weaponry, as this is the weaponry they are accustomed to, although in some cases the most trustworthy human helpers are given Tau weaponry and equipment, as well as training. This is quite feasible for the Tau, as unlike several other Xenos races within their empire, the humans are physiologically similar enough to be able to utilize the majority of Tau weaponry. These troops are deployed to battle only in rare circumstances, as they cannot fully be integrated into the way of war of the Firecast. They are used very often in the occupation of Imperial worlds, where they are able to work better than a Tau occupation force would, with a population that is almost religiously xenophobic in its outlook. They are also used quite often to aid in diplomatic efforts with Imperial worlds the Watercast are negotiating with. There they are able to articulate the benefits of joining the Tau Empire to other humans. Whatever their reasons or excuses from turning to the Emperor and embracing the foul Xenos matters not. Innocence proves nothing, as they say. Imperial policy is quite clear. The immediate eradication of these traitors whenever and wherever they are encountered. And if they are captured alive, after the extraction of any useful intelligence, they are to be executed. Vespid Stingwings. Once heard, the high-pitched hum of Vespid wings is an unforgettable noise, though few hear it and live to tell the tale. The sound is usually picked out just moments before the ominous lightning crackle report of the neutron blaster releases its deadly charge. Vespids are a flying insectoid race that have joined the Tau Empire. Their mobile units, known as Stingwings, fight as auxiliaries alongside the warriors of the Firecast. It is strange to see the Vespids and the Tau allied together, for at first glance they seem so radically different. The Vespids appear to hover and bob effortlessly in mid-air, their chitinous wings moving so quickly they are seen only as a blur. Although Tau of the Aircast once bore wings, they now rely upon technology to soar. Like the Fire Warriors, the Vespids are covered in segmented plate armor, but their protection is no engineering marvel, but rather a hardened exoskeleton. Where the Fire Warriors use a sophisticated comm sensor attached to their helmets to supply an array of data, the Vespids rely on natural means, a pair of remarkably sensitive antennae, constantly collecting information about their surroundings. Despite their obvious differences, both races are highly deferential to their leaders, obeying even their suggestions as if they were strict orders. While Tau and Vespid races now share a tight relationship, such was not always the case. When the Watercast first encountered the Vespids, they had many difficulties. The insectoid mindset seemed too radically different to grasp or reason with. However, at the instruction of the Ethereals, the Earthcast supplied a communication interface device that facilitated a much greater degree of understanding between the two races. More sophisticated versions were soon developed, including the communication helms worn by the Vespid strain leaders, and these cleared the way for integration into the growing Tau Empire. Uniquely at the time, the Vespids welcomed their new position in the Empire and bowed before the preeminence of the Ethereals. The Vespids readily agreed to exchange auxiliary troops and regular harvests of the highly coveted crystals of the planet Vespid for technological support and weapons upgrades. There have been whispers alluding to a hidden connection between the Vespids' calm acceptance of annexation and the interface helms given to their leaders, though no evidence to support such claims has ever been forthcoming. The Vespid Stingwings are of great use in warfare due to their speed, their ability to navigate over rough terrain, and the lethal nature of their weapons. The armament carried by the Stingwings is unique to Vespids. Mounted at the end of each gun's barrel is a highly energetic and unstable crystal harvested from the lower levels of the Vespids' homeworld. The Tau have provided the Stingwings with the technology to mount these crystals on advanced neutron containment and projection systems, making them deadly weapons, able to pass straight through enemy armor to damage flesh or fry inner circuitry. The weapons, however, only function in the hands of a Vespid. For the constant ultrasonic tone emitted by the vibrations of their wings perfectly modulates the energies contained within the crystals. In battle, the Stingwings are most often integrated into fast-moving mobile cadres. There, the Vespids serve as flying reconnaissance, complementing the ground-based scouts of the Pathfinder teams. Some commanders also use Stingwings to attack alongside the crisis teams, for the winged insectoids have the speed and maneuverability to keep up with agile Tau jetpacks. It is a great compliment that all 5 castes wholly welcome the Vespid Stingwings, a level of acceptance that has not yet been paid to the more mercenary Kroot of Peck. The Kroot, warriors of Peck. The Kroot are by far the most common alien auxiliaries serving in the Firecast's armies, with many billions of their kind armed for war and assigned to hunter cadres of nearly every sept. Although their primitive aggression is viewed with distaste by the Tau, such inherent savagery makes them particularly effective shock troops. The Tau and the Kroot have long enjoyed a mutually beneficial alliance, dating back to the First Sphere expansion. A Tau exploration fleet encountered a fierce battle between the brutish Orks and another species which they later learned was the Kroot, who they saw possessed a tenacious and hardy spirit. Compelled to aid the Kroot, the Tau went on to fight beside them for many years, eventually freeing the avian species' enclaves. This conflict became known as the War in the Place of Union, and it ended upon the Kroot homeworld of Peck. In its wake, the Kroot pledged to fight for the greater good, in exchange for regular payment. Compared to the Tau, Kroot are warlike and bloodthirsty, yet they are neither stupid nor bestial. The Kroot are uncommonly skilled trackers, infiltrators, and wilderness fighters, experts in fieldcraft who swiftly master the perils and boons of each new ecosystem they encounter. When fighting for the Tau, the Kroot act as scouts, ambushers, skirmish screens, and counter-offensive close combat reserves. Their speed, survival skills, and natural ferocity are all traits the Tau lack in comparison, and, as in the case of hand-to-hand combat, have no desire to develop. The Kroot give Tau commanders even greater flexibility in both Kion and Mont'au strategies. The avian aliens are naturally suited to the role of the patient hunter, and can operate in terrain difficult even for pathfinders or stealth teams. For those commanders who favour Mont'au, the Kroot are superb terror troops who can storm enemy lines from hidden positions and pave the way for the rest of the Tau army. When fighting independently, Kroot warpacks operate primarily as guerrilla forces. They melt away into the densest terrain after whittling their enemies down with repeated rifle volleys. In this way, they can outlast and outwit most foes. This does not mean the Kroot are incapable of delivering furious attacks, however. Their onslaughts are terrifying to behold. They leap into the fight while voicing shrill avian cries. Caw-caw! Blades at each end of their rifles allow them to hack and slash at their foes, the most skillful spinning these weapons like blurring quarterstaffs. Yet the Kroot possess natural weapons also, in the form of talons and beak-like maws lined with sharp fangs. They have no qualms about using these to rip their enemies to bloody tatters. On unnumbered battlefields, the Kroot have been witnessed rapidly consuming the flesh of their foes in a savage feeding frenzy. Sometimes their enemies have yet to die when the Kroot rip at their flesh, break off their limbs, or tear into their necks. Kroot are tall, wiry, and possess a light, almost hollow bone structure. This gives the appearance of physical frailty, though this is far from the truth. Their muscles are composed of dense fibre spindles, with a greater power-to-mass ratio than that possessed by humans. Due to this, they move in a quick, bounding gait, and have the power to leap considerable heights and distances. Perhaps the Kroot's most notable features are their crowns of elongated flexible quills. These are powerful sensory organs, which combined with the Kroot's extremely strong senses of smell and eyesight, help them make formidable trackers and pack hunters. Their natural affinity for hunting and a life exposed to the elements are contributed to further by the way they generate waste. They excrete an oily sweat that serves as insulation and an antibiotic salve, as well as giving the Kroot the ability to leave pheromone trails, mark territories, and communicate with each other in silence. The pheromones can even be used to communicate with their subspecies. The Kroot possess a unique, morphagic biology that allows them to actively absorb the desired genetic traits from the flesh they devour, which they call the strands. Being furiously carnivorous creatures with a ferocious appetite, the Kroot will gladly consume the flesh of creatures from virtually any species, though they avoid the Tyranids, or being corrupted by the warp. As a result of this evolutionary talent, there exist in the galaxy Kroot who can spit acid, have developed chameleonic abilities, or have grown oversized muscles, longer limbs, and even swimming fins. The ability to take on select genetic traits of other species is a powerful boon to the Kroot, but it is also one that comes at great risk. Without careful attention to which strands they absorb, Kroot packs and kindreds can trap themselves in an evolutionary dead end. There are numerous examples of Kroot subspecies believed to be examples of this, including the diminutive Kroot worm, skittering 12-leg, a vicious Kroot hound, and massive great Narlock. The forthright nature of the Kroot is reflected in their projectile weapons. These are solid and straightforward, relying on robust mechanisms to launch projectiles via chemical charge, black powder cartridge, or simple kinetic force. Kroot rifles and carbines, and the much larger cylinder-fed repeater cannons, are all primitive examples of this no-nonsense, high-impact approach. Tangle bomb launchers are another. These weapons hurl oversized bowlers at their victims, the weights capable of breaking bones or else replaced with bombs that detonate upon solid contact with the prey. Even more viscerally violent are the Kroot long guns and blast javelins. The former fire hefty armor-piercing rounds filled with a chemical explosive for greater lethality. The latter are weighted for throwing. Wiry Kroot's strength seeing them travel impressive distances, and often tipped with explosive heads, capable of shredding tank tracks or cracking open powered armor. It is thought that the Kroot ancestors of each subspecies pursued certain strands so relentlessly and regularly that, while gaining numerous physical talents, they lost much of their intelligence as well as the ability to evolve with new strands. Their bodies and the abilities they came to possess were fixed forevermore. Though attitudes towards these creatures varies between Kroot kindreds, generally the Kroot hold them in high regard. To varying degrees, Kroot see these beasts as living warnings as to what might happen if they fail to carefully manage the strands they take in, as Kroot who cannot adapt with new strands are vulnerable. Some see the subspecies as having performed an act of self-sacrifice. First, in showing the dangers so clearly, and second, because as a result they possess abilities which the Kroot lack and can make use of to continue surviving and thriving. Most Kroot also share close bonds with their subspecies, with partnerships more of kinship and collaboration rather than one of dominance and domestication. The subspecies are incapable of speaking the Kroot language, but the whistles, hoots, and coos of the Kroot register in their minds nonetheless. As a result, they are able to interpret complex instructions, even if they cannot reply or discuss them. Just like Kroot, the subspecies can also interpret the oily, sweat-like secretions the Kroot make, further gelling relations between the two and making the link between the Kroot's will and action in battle frictionless. Kroot hounds, for example, are bad-tempered beasts, whose keen senses aid them in tracking down prey, and whose beak-like maws can tear through flak-weave armor with ease. The Kroot often release these creatures in hunting packs to maul vulnerable or fleeing foes. For all the hound's ferocity, the Kroot can always rely on their swift obedience to command. Another subspecies commonly found alongside Kroot troops is the Krootox, a broad-backed creature with enormously powerful forearms. Their temperament varies greatly depending on their age. Older Krootox are lumbering, hulking creatures that serve as mobile heavy weapons platforms. They mount such guns as the repeater cannon or Kroot heavy grenade launcher, which is operated by a Kroot warrior who has climbed on the Krootox's large haunches. Although not aggressive as a rule, a Krootox will fight ferociously to defend its rider, whom the beast sees as a herd sibling. In comparison, younger Krootox are much more agile and hot-tempered, though are no less devoted to their riders and their kin. Together they form rampager packs. Dexterous, formidably strong, and possessing a speed that belies their sheer bulk, they form a vital component of a Kroot kindred's ambushing strength. They are no less able to weave through tree branches or clamber over ruined structures than Kroot, and their senses are equally strong. When the Shaper commands, the rampagers burst from cover and charge. Some plough headlong into enemy lines, their fury scattering the foe while Kroot riders hack them down with ferocious cleaver blows. Other packs perform a harrying role, rooting out foes in cover as riders throw javelin after javelin at them. Rampagers excel at disrupting enemy positions and identifying targets for the massive firepower of their Tau allies. Beyond the deep natural bonds the Kroot share with their kin beasts, they also possess an instinctive affinity for the taming of non-Kroot animals and forming strong connections with them. These can range from colonies of parasites a Kroot may cultivate upon their bodies to act as pets or food, all the way to gargantuan beasts. Over the millennia, the Kroot have harnessed the abilities of countless creatures on innumerable worlds. One that has formed a mainstay for Kroot kindreds and has also been deployed alongside Tau hunter cadres is the Calamandra, an amphibian-esque quadruped native to the swamps of Chatter. These creatures, which are incredible climbers, have lightning-fast reactions, are capable of moving at high speed, and possess chameleonic properties. This, combined with the Calamandra's solitary nature, makes them perfect mounts for Kroot lone spears. These are trackers and observers who operate far from their employers, allies and fellow Kroot. Though many lone spears prefer the solitude of such a role, there are those who maintain this distance as a necessary sacrifice through devotion to the needs of their kindred. Equipped with weapons such as the Kroot long gun or blast javelin, they can also take advantage of the Calamandra's stealthy capabilities to lie in perfect position to swiftly knock out enemy light vehicles and rapidly scurry away. To help avoid the evolutionary dead ends into which the subspecies have fallen, the Kroot rely on the leadership of their Shapers. These are Kroot who possess an instinctive understanding of their species' strange ability, the strands, and how best to exploit them. The Kroot follow their Shapers with fierce loyalty. Shapers are more than genetic guides for their people. They fulfill the role of mystic shaman, military commander, void navigator, and much more. Some of the aptitudes required for shaping manifest naturally in certain young Kroot, thus marking them for greatness. The Kroot are an adaptable and pragmatic species, able both to teach and learn required skills for various branches of shaping. They place great emphasis on ensuring they are never without these vital leaders and guides. Shaping, as a discipline, is a broad tree with many branches that each concern a different specialism valuable to Kroot society. Trail shaping, for example, is the mastery of marking paths for Kroot in ways others could not detect, killing sentries, making river crossings and triggering avalanches to remove enemy observation posts or close off routes to their forces. War shaping, meanwhile, involves the formulation of battle strategy, the coordination of packs, and selecting the time and places of attack and withdrawal. Flesh shapers are those most knowledgeable in the arts of flesh shaping, selecting the strands their kin should devour. Though all shapers are expected to perform the duties associated with any branch, most have preferences or talents which result in them spending much of their lives serving in a single capacity and becoming known by their primary branch as trail shaper, war shapers, flesh shapers, and so on. The Kroot have been a mercenary species for as long as they have traversed the stars, trading their fighting skills and natural ferocity for weapons, food, and other resources. Thus, another important duty of the Shapers is to follow the branch of pact shaping, seeking out mercenary employment for their kindred and setting the terms of each contract. Many of these arrangements are formed with the Tau, but by no means all of them. Kroot have little compunction as to their employers. Their strange and colossal void-faring war spheres ply the space lanes far and wide, and they have been seen fighting for human inquisitors and rogue traders alongside Aeldari of various sorts, in allegiance with kin of the Leagues of Votann, and on behalf of even stranger and more shadowy employers that have been known to include agents of chaos. There is no telling how Kroot might choose those they fight for. Any might have personal, genetic, or circumstantial reasons to reject or align themselves with those of another galaxy species. Ultimately, the ideal mercenary role for the Kroot is one that comes with ample payment, low risk of death, and the opportunity to secure new strands for their species. The Kroot are a wily species which, combined with millennia of experience and the Shaper's instinctive talents, makes them superb mercenary contract negotiators. But it is not just these factors that give them an edge. Often a kindred will have consumed examples of the species they are in talks with, giving them a unique insight into their fears and strengths and desires. They are ever weary of would-be employers assigning them suicidally dangerous missions in the hope of never having to pay the Kroot for their mercenary services. Kroot mitigate such risks with careful negotiation, secret plans, and a willingness to abandon an employer without remorse. It is not unheard of for Kroot to switch sides mid-battle on the promise of greater rewards, or to better ensure their survival. The only exception made by the Kroot to this amoral position is in their dealings with the Tau, to whom they remain unfalteringly loyal, though they find it all but impossible not to look down upon the Kroot's apparently rustic ways, or be repulsed by the aliens' bloody gorging on the foe. The Tau treat the Kroot with great respect. Furthermore, the Kroot have never forgotten the aid the Tau gave them so long ago, and it is returned in kind. Though many Kroot will serve as mercenaries at some point, for some it becomes a significant portion of their lives, or the definition of them. Such is the case with the Farstalker Kinbrands, close-knit veterans who have often spent years away from Peck, the surrounding Kroot enclaves, and the wider Tau Empire. They are known for their independent-mindedness, wide use of alien weapons and technology, and fieldcraft skills superb even for their own kind. Kroot live in kindreds, gathering somewhere between mercenary companies, extended tribal families, and nomadic warbands, which can range greatly in size. Each has its own codes, traditions, and scent variants, as well as skin pigmentation. Besides external attack, the greatest threat to a kindred is evolutionary stagnation, and so they constantly strive for continued growth and survival. Success in war and trade are essential for the acquiring of new strands. Bonds within a kindred are extremely close. Each Kroot knows another by their scent, the sounds of their steps, the way their quills rattle when they smell fresh blood, as well as their squawks and howls. To attack one Kroot is to raise the ire of its entire kindred. The Kroot greatly revere their ancestors, known collectively as the Roots. These forebears husbanded the wisdom, knowledge, and strands that enabled the Kroot of the present to live and continue their family lines. In stark contrast to this grounded ancestor worship, and the way in which the Kroot care deeply for their own, when it comes to survival of the kindred, the Kroot follow a grimly practical approach. A long history of wandering and wilderness survival on their arboreal homeworld of Peck has engendered in them a pragmatism that to the Tau seems extremely cruel. In times of war, to move quickly, they will eat their old, young, and infirm, who might otherwise slow them down. In so doing, they preserve their strands for the future. Those killed in this way are seen to have made a sacrifice for their kindred, for, as is the nature of the Kroot, the needs of the whole come first. The Kroot evolved on their nest world's warm and temperate primary continent. It is a place of steaming jungles, enormous forests, towering mountains, and abundant wildlife. Here there are many places of great cultural significance to the Kroot, sites of great and sombre gravitas that seem almost to flow from the wider whole of the natural world around them. The enormous carved jagger tree on the slopes of Mount Kikon, where Angok Prok was laid to rest, the grove of ancestors in the Kamyon Mountains, the Oath Stone on the Plains of Bones, where Proc pledged his people's allegiance to the Tau. There are also places the Kroot avoid, one being the Yugolak forest, in which the trees are twisted and black, and terrifying monsters distantly related to the Kroot dwell. The Kroot nest world has an immense hold over them. Even those born far away from it feel an intense pull to migrate to Peck at some point in their lives. This has proven to be an evolutionary boon for the Kroot, as kindreds answering the instinctive call home bring with them new strands to continually rejuvenate their genetic breadth. Though no worlds hold as great a significance to the Kroot as their nest world of Peck, they have settled every planet in their home system, as well as many beyond its bounds. Kror is a petrified forest world, saturated with radiation. Its wildlife is hideously mutated, and it is forbidden to eat anything from there. Only Kroot, granted special permission by the Shapers, may travel to it. In comparison, Porlock is a verdant world, its population second only to Peck in size. Where Peck's native species have been all but wiped out by the Kroot for food, leaving much lower genetic diversity, strict discipline on the part of Porlock's flesh shapers has maintained the planet's breadth of creatures. The third largest Kroot population lives on the jungle world of Chatter. Orkoid space hulk wreckage litters the surface, and the population is split between extreme traditionalists who shun Chatter's technological bounties and dwell deep in the world's many swamps, and the tech-savvy who have exploited the debris scattered over the planet. On the frozen world of Aqua, life for the Kroot is hard, and so they view the Kroot of the other worlds as soft. Their planet is heavily polluted, rich in harsh fuel chemicals, which the Kroot work tirelessly to tap for their own needs, with little care for Aqua itself. The entirely artificial planetoid of Nokor-Myers was not created by the Kroot. Earth-caste scientists have solved few of its mysteries. It has become a bustling spaceport all the same, home to an ever-changing population of traders, mercenaries and travellers, drawn from scores of alien species, especially those belonging to the Tau Empire. For even more detail on the Kroot, their origins and their nature, follow the links in the description to this Voxcast. The Tau Septs. Named after its primary or sept world, a sept is a Tau colonized star system. They can include any number of additional colonized planets, asteroid fields or moons, as well as other holdings such as listening posts, sensor fields, shield satellites, orbital cities and mining operations, all connected by a series of space stations and a massive net of communications and sensor relays. A sept may take many generations to establish itself, and are all unique, with their own cultural nuances and varying proportions of the different castes and alien populations. Tau. Tau Sept is the blazing beacon for the light of the greater good. It is the cradle of the Tau Empire, and their greatest seat of culture and wisdom and military excellence. Phenomenally well defended, rich in history and infrastructure, it is to all other septs as a sept world is to its satellite planets and moons. It was on Tau that the eponymous species took their first steps, and here that they first received the wisdom of the Ethereals. It is appropriate, then, that even now Tau Sept remains the beating heart of the Empire and the seat of the High Council. In shining domes surrounded by beautiful parklands and towering statues, the Empire's ruling Ethereals gather beneath the stern gaze of Eonvar. They are joined by the highest-ranking representatives of each caste, whose duty it is to advise their spiritual leaders and to communicate their edicts to the rest of the Empire. To support this centralized role, Tau Sept boasts the greatest bureaucratic and cultural centers, staffed by some of the most skilled and efficient facilitators the Water Caste can provide. Yet, for all its development, the Sept's worlds have retained much of their natural beauty, alongside magnificent cities, production centers and fortifications. Unlike humanity, the Tau pride themselves on possessing the wisdom and restraint not to have overrun their birth world or its neighbouring planets. Not for nothing are the folk of this sept considered wise and cultured. Tau Sept also boasts the oldest and most venerated Firecast academies. So prestigious is it to learn the code of fire within the Sept's training domes that every Tau who successfully passes through them earns a personal name simply for having done so. This name is chosen by their tutors before their first operation, and borne into battle with pride ever after. The academies of this sept produce vast numbers of highly trained fire warriors, whose cadres enjoy access to every manner of weapon, armour, drone, and combat vehicle they might require. This is not viewed as a privilege, however, but rather a proudly borne burden of duty. To have access to all that one needs means, to the Tau, that there can be no excuse for failing to excel in service to the greater good. Thus, the fire warriors of this sept train tirelessly and strive ever for perfection, knowing that nothing less is expected or required of them. They place particular emphasis on the oldest and most traditional Tau ways of war. They refine battle plans laid down generations before, always seeking for ways to improve upon them or hone them to ever more nuanced excellence. Their commanders espouse elegant and classical forms of both Mont'au and Kion, and execute their meticulously detailed stratagems with sublime skill and judgment. Every fire warrior, no matter their rank or experience, drills tirelessly to ensure that, from a strategic multi-contingency level right down to individual teams upon the field of battle, all Tau Sept military assets interlock and overlap with breathtaking and practiced efficiency. Viola, the warrior's sept. The name Viola can be translated as meaning hot-blooded. This is certainly a fitting description for the Tau who hail from this sept. Its Firecast enclaves are hugely populous, ensuring a swift and constant flow of naturally talented recruits to bolster Viola's armies, while the sept's Aircast has produced some of the finest atmospheric combat pilots in the Empire's history. The worlds of Viola Sept orbit fiery young binary stars. Several planets lie within the system's habitable zone, while the Tau have sighted domes on almost every other planet and moon in the system. Such prolific colonization belies the lethality of the system's biospheres. There is not a settlement in Viola Sept that does not have to contend with rapacious predatory flora and fauna on a near constant basis. Such natural hazards could be quelled, but the Ethereals have dictated matters be left as they are. The fierce Violan temperament is an asset to the Empire, and the Sept's people would not be what they are without a daily fight to endure. Violans are proud of what they sometimes call their edge. Throughout the Empire, the name Viola is synonymous with courage, confidence, conviction, and determination. The Sept's Earth-cast scientists have been responsible for great advances in short-ranged, high-impact weapons, such as the Pulse Carbine and Pulse Blaster. It was Violan research teams also who created the prototype Onager gauntlets, issued to a handful of Tau leaders during the war beyond the Damocles Gulf. The Sept's Watercast are similarly forthright. Their traders have a reputation for hard bargaining and profitable risk-taking. As for their diplomats, Chassot Viola Tichol once said of them that he would rather stare down the barrel of a loaded pulse rifle than find himself on the receiving end of their forceful negotiating stance. The Sept's greatest strength lies in its military forces, who enjoy a vaunted reputation from one end of the Tau Empire to the other. Viola produces such a quantity of high-quality soldiery, war engines, and material that only the Tau Sept itself can rival its prodigious output. Commanders from this sept are masters at bringing forth and harnessing the aggression of their soldiers, and are renowned proponents of Mont'au philosophy of war. Violan strategy espouses reconnaissance in force, followed by pinpoint strikes upon crucial targets by battlesuits and airborne assets. Violan commanders take risks their counterparts from other septs would not consider. A fact that has caused occasional tension amongst mixed expeditionary forces with cadres from those other septs, but the results are typically spectacular. Many enemies collapse, their leadership and communication infrastructure crippled, and their most powerful assets annihilated before they have even grasped that battle has come upon them. Against those who stubbornly refuse to give in, the Violan commanders next unleash the full might of their cadres in fast-paced campaigns of conquest that soon bludgeon the foe into defeat and compliance. This is not to say that the Violans do not use Kion tactics. Rather, they imbue such manoeuvres with their own trademark aggression. Their lures are most often crippled enemy assets crying for help, while Violan commanders eschew multi-layered complexity in favour of decisive and overwhelming ambush. The Firecast academies of Violan Sept are amongst the oldest, largest and most renowned in all of Tau space. Names such as Vashir, Foasa, and Corvret training domes have produced countless heroes. These storied figures are immortalized in dynamic statuary around the Firecast academies on Viola Prime. It is the greatest ambition of every new Shas'lar who graduates from there that their likeness will one day join those timeless heroic figures. Sakia, the Stilled Storm. Sakia was not an easy sept to establish. Its worlds are hot, lashed by ferocious natural phenomena and the fiery anger of their star. The Tau not only overcame these challenges, but they also established such numerous and prosperous dome cities that Sakia is now the most populous of all Tau-controlled systems. The worlds of Sakia Sept boast interconnected dome cities and agriplexes that cover almost the entire surface. Beneath their foundations, subterranean cavern networks contain sprawling Earth-cast laboratories and factories that labour in a continuous artificial day. Sakia Prime is a sweltering cityscape of glittering crystal and alloy, whose once inhospitable deserts now play host to teeming trillions. Human worlds supporting such populations have been shown time and time again to languish in inequality. The Tau look upon the nightmarish hive cities of the Imperium with mingled pity and revulsion. Thanks to the greater good, the cities of Sakia are nothing like this. It is true that the average citizen lives a comparatively simple life, yet every Sakian does their part to ensure that life in their cities remains manageable, their worlds productive, and their people healthy. This requires individual discipline and selflessness. Not for nothing is this sept renowned for its calm temperament and unimpeachable conduct. The ingrained discipline of the Sakian Tau lends itself to military service. Their Firecast are respected for their efficiency and lethality, standing firm against on-rushing enemy forces, coolly selecting their targets before unleashing crashing volleys that stop even the most nightmarish foes. The steady temperament of the Sept's commanders makes them natural proponents of Kion tactics, laying intricate overlapping plans of feint and strike that see their enemies drawn in and picked apart. Another advantage possessed by the Firecast of Sakia is their familiarity with tight urban confines. Their sense of direction within urban settings seems almost supernatural to other Tau, and they possess an instinctive spatial awareness that allows them to detect incoming threats and pick out optimal routes amidst cityscapes. To maximize these advantages, the Sakian training domes incorporate entire subterranean facilities, within which are simulated the urban sprawls of many species. Imperial hives are replicated in miles-wide swathes, their finer details are consulted upon by those Gue'vesa who can bear to look back upon the nightmare they left behind. Ork scrap forts, twisted Tyranid bioscapes, and even replica Necron tombs are amongst the hostile alien cityscapes simulated for the use of Sakian Firecast. None are perfect replicas, yet they serve the purpose. Sakian cadres are often charged with the hellish duties of urban pacification or close-quarter tunnel fighting. They accept these missions and the casualty rates with staunch pride, and approach each grueling conflict with the honourable calm for which they are so highly famed. Votann, Forge of the Empire. Votann is a sept blessed in both material riches and scientific academia. The former flows to the sept world from the bountiful mineral mines of its sister planets. There it is put into service by the latter, with Earth-caste scientists employing their system's riches to fashion remarkable new technologies that benefit the entire Tau Empire. Ever since it was established during the First Sphere expansion, Votann Sept has been a centre for erudition and progressive thought. Votann Prime is famed for its libraries, artistic centres, and magnificent architecture, all results of its unusually high Earth-caste population. There is a harder side to Votann, of course. With such a concentration of brilliant Earth-caste minds, the Sept also possesses the most dynamic and well-resourced military scientific complex within Tau space. Its Applied Sciences Division have been responsible for countless advances in a range of fields. It was scientists on Votann Prime who pioneered the stasis chambers that now carry entire cadres in temporal suspension on their long voyages through the void. A team under Votann Veshno was responsible for the pilot battlesuit, first used by Shaslo To Shang during armoured battles on Mugaloth Bay. Rumour has it that entire scientific cadres were transported in secret to Nendras Sept as early as the end of the Second Sphere expansion to develop the breathtakingly deadly Ghost Keel battlesuit. The Firecast of Votann Sept benefit hugely from the skill of their scientific compatriots. Every arm of their military boasts bleeding-edge technological advantages, from finely crafted armour and weapons to perfectly attuned shield modulators. In return for such boons, the Firecast willingly field-test the prototype technologies of the Applied Sciences divisions on the battlefield. Such tests are not without their risks. Inevitably, for every wonder weapon that outperforms all expectations, there is another system that fails the stress test of live combat with tragic results. Those fire warriors lost to such mishaps are honoured as their Vastur, or selfless tutors. Their names are recorded for posterity upon a glowing light sculpture that endlessly scrolls through the largest of Votann's libraries. Dal-Eth, the Blooded Sept. Dal-Eth Sept bore the brunt of the Imperium's Damocles crusade. Its Sept world was the stage upon which that conflict's last punishing battles played out, and was terribly ravaged by their violence. For all this, Dal-Eth is perhaps the best example of the Tau Va in action, for it has risen from the ashes thanks to cooperation and indomitable determination. Dal-Eth has always been cosmopolitan and bustling, welcoming Tau and alien off-worlders with great enthusiasm, first and foremost in the name of the swift-flowing free trade. The Watercast of Dal-Eth are renowned for their ability to conduct vast complex trade negotiations. The goal of these is not for one party to profit at another's expense, but rather to ensure the most mutually beneficial exchanges of information, goods, and personnel for all sides. So they claim is the Tau Va best served, and Dal-Eth enriched not only with commerce but also vital contacts with allies amongst countless non-Tau species. The benefits of this creed were never more evident than in the wake of the Sept's conflict with human invaders. Hundreds of alien trade partners and allies responded to Dal-Eth's call for aid. While some of these beings sought to swindle the Tau from beneath a cloak of seeming magnanimity, others came out of genuine good feeling and charity. Through the tireless machinations of the Dal-Eth's Watercast, altruistic and swindlers alike ended up giving more than they had intended, while somehow still leaving satisfied. So did reconstruction materials and willing labour crews flood Dal-Eth Sept, hundreds of thousands of Brachier, Thraxians, Buyubari, hulking Mauja, and even mortified Gue'vesa toiled alongside the Tau, many becoming naturalized citizens of the worlds they had helped rebuild. Within a generation, Dalif cities had risen more formidable and bustling than ever before. The legacy of this joint reconstruction is a sept whose population is remarkably diverse, variously described as the Tau-Va writ large, and a hopeful vision of the galactic future. This extends to its military forces also, with Dalithan contingents counting as many alien auxiliaries amongst their ranks as Tau. The Farsight Enclaves. At the end of the Second Sphere expansion, Oshava led a force across the Damocles Gulf, his mission to reclaim those Tau colony worlds lost to Imperial aggression. Initially, Commander Farsight's dynamic leadership saw world after world taken back from the humans, who had been forced to turn their attention to other threats. Then came Arthas Moloch and disaster. With but a single world to recolonize, Oshava was drawn off mission by his oldest and most hated enemies, the Orks. What started as swift raids to repel greenskin warbands soon turned into a prolonged war against a horde of Ork clans travelling aboard crude asteroid bases. In time, Oshava's forces cut deep into the Ork invasion, chasing the ruling war boss to a nearby artifact world. This was a forlorn place, long abandoned by the Imperium. Its name was Arthas Moloch, and there Farsight's forces were engaged by a savage yet unidentified enemy, while the Orks escaped in the confusion. Little was reported from the battle, save that all the Ethereals who had accompanied Oshava's coalition were slain. The mysterious attackers had subsequently disappeared, leaving Arthas Moloch desolate once more. Undaunted by his losses, and despite orders to return, Commander Farsight refused to rejoin the other forces of the Tau Empire. Instead, he led the remnants of his army back onto the Orks' trail. Their pursuit soon took them beyond communication range, eventually passing through the strange region known as the Forbidden Zone and vanishing altogether. The Tau Empire sent many desperate messages via their chain of communication beacons. Accelerator arrays hurled their pleas and eventually their ultimatums deep into unknown space along the last known trail of Oshava and his expeditionary force. No response came back. After many years without reply, the expedition was deemed lost. The Tau Empire mourned the fall of one of their most illustrious commanders. It was not until years later that probes penetrated deep into the region where Oshava's forces had last been seen. The Deep Void AI beamed back ominous reports. It appeared that Farsight yet lived and had established his own colonies on the far side of the Damocles Gulf. This mysterious, unprecedented and unthinkable betrayal of the greater good haunts the Tau Empire to this day. The fact remains that the so-called Farsight enclaves continue to thrive. They are, in effect, their own extended sept that has declared independence from the Tau Empire. Their caste factions still aid one another according to the tenets of the Tau-Va, and they have not slipped back into the barbarism of Mont'au. Yet they live without ethereal oversight and refuse any intrusion by the fifth caste. Oshava himself still rules, another unsettling mystery considering that his lifespan should have drawn to an end long ago. For all this, the most disturbing aspects of the Farsight enclaves, from the point of view of the Ethereal Council, is the appearance amongst their forces of battlesuits and weapons technology developed by the Empire after their departure. Perhaps this is due to spycraft or theft. Yet the fear remains. What if factions within loyal septs are aiding the enclaves? For more detailed information on the Farsight enclaves, I again direct you to the description for previous Voxcasts which delve into these subjects in more detail. The Tau Empire consists of a great number of septs, both major and minor, all making their unique contributions to the Tau-Va from the oldest and most well-established to the newest frontier colonies. These septs include Dionoi, named after the twin moons of its primary world, which has withstood numerous Ork invasions, and Falshia, renowned for its armaments factories and the quality of its weapons. Both of these venerable and acclaimed septs were settled during the glorious and optimistic days of the First Sphere expansion. By comparison, where Felshea is a place of industry, Aeldari is a pristine Second Sphere world, its natural beauty preserved to bring an order of beauty and serenity to the retirement of honoured heroes. Other septs of that sphere include Tashvar, its people known for tenacity and hardiness, and Ta'ulku, a place of culture, unity, and diplomacy, upon which large ethereal temples and alien institutes have been erected. These septs were joined in the third sphere by several others, including Mugaloth Bay, whose Tau hate the armies of humankind. Spheres of expansion. The rise of the Tau can be seen to develop through distinct phases of exploration, conquest, and settlement known as spheres of expansion. Each is marked by a long build-up of resources and material, after which continual waves of exploratory missions and military campaigns follow. In this way are new septs secured, which in turn form the jumping-off points for the next sphere of expansion. The events of the spheres of expansion have occurred over thousands of years. Still, when set against the immense distances involved in voidfaring and the comparative pace set by other expanding civilizations, their progress has been explosive. Each has spurred massive leaps in technology and understanding. Each has come with its own traumas and costs, which Tau civilization has borne with characteristic stoicism. The initial surge out into the void saw the Tau colonize the dense star clusters around their homeworld. The first 8 Tau septs were established during this era of enterprise and adventure. It was an era when the might and value of the Firecast was fully appreciated by the rest of the Empire, for many worlds played host to hostile alien predators that had yet to be eliminated before colonization could begin. The Watercast, too, proved their value during the First Sphere expansion, for it was they, with the aid of the Ethereals, who acclimatized their people to the notion of befriending and then incorporating even the strangest aliens into the Empire. For all their efforts, though, there was one group who could not be absorbed, nor even reasoned with. It took many costly disasters before the Tau accepted that the Orks, who proliferate throughout every region of the galaxy, were too savage and hostile to ever benefit the greater good. The First Sphere expansion ended only when the vast distances of space slowed progression to a crawl. It was time for the Earthcast to develop new methods of spacefaring, and for the rest of the thinly spread empire to regather its strength. In the build-up to the Second Sphere expansion, the Tau developed their first AI, incorporated countless more alien auxiliaries into their empire, and grew greatly in number. Then, the Earthcast of Felshea Sept invented the ZFR Horizon Accelerator engine, which could propel Tau void ships to near light speed. Only then did Ethereal Supreme Aeon order the second expansion to commence. This new undertaking was to prove even more dynamic than the first, with more than a dozen new septs colonized over its span. The name of Commander Puretide dominated this period of Tau history, as he led masterful campaigns in which the septs of Elishia, Tashvar, and Aeldari owe their existence. Even the battle-loving Orks feared to face Puretide by the time his career neared its end. Towards the conclusion of this period of expansion, the Tau pushed forces across the mysterious Damocles Gulf, encountering the Imperium for the first time. Watercast negotiators knew initial success here, and brought a score of human worlds willingly into the Empire before the inevitable Imperial retribution came, driving the Tau back across the Gulf. The Damocles Crusade carved a bloody path through Tau space before finally being bled of its momentum by Commanders Oshava and Oshasira on Dalif Prime. In the wake of this shocking conflict, the high-placed Ethereal Aeon sent Oshava back across the Gulf to attempt further conquests, only for the commander and his followers to desert in mysterious circumstances. At the same time, the horror of High Fleet Gorgon ploughed into Kel-Shen Sept. The ensuing battles drained the last of the Tau reserves before the invaders were defeated. The Second Sphere expansion was at an end. The Tau Empire was almost ready to launch its third great expansion when an Ork war of unprecedented enormity spilled from the Western Veil Nebula to attack the Viola, Sakia, and Tauni septs. So began the Great War of Confederation, during which Eonvar, now Ethereal Supreme, brought the entire Tau Empire together as a unified war engine to first halt and then defeat the Orks. Near the end of the Second Sphere expansion, several of Puretide's most promising pupils had been placed into suspended animation against the day the Empire would need them most. It was during the Ork invasion that Eonvar had Commander Oshasira reawakened, for he knew her time had come. By the end of the war, which raged for 12 years, Shadowsun had made her name as the greatest commander in living memory. She was the hero of the Firecast, victor of Veharara, the Dawn Worlds of Commution, and the Kresh expansions. Moreover, the Empire that revered her had achieved a total war footing during the conflict, and its armies were now filled with blooded veterans, buoyed up by the victory. Knowing the moment was right, Eonvar ordered the Third Sphere expansion to begin. New Earthcast advances saw the Tau void ships travel faster than ever, and with stasis chambers on board that could transport entire hunter cadres in suspended animation. The expansion surged across the Damocles Gulf, with Shadowsun at its head. The Watercast had performed decades of preparatory negotiations amidst the distant alien worlds, and so Shadowsun's forces claimed dozens of new planets in spectacular short order. She drove her armies deep into Imperial space, culminating in the crushing conquest of Agrellan, which was declared the capital world of the new Mugaloth Bay Sept. Some Tau naively believed they had the Imperium in full retreat. They did not appreciate the scale of their error until the cataclysmic Imperial counterattack came. Only the unexpected aid of Oshava and his rebels saw the Tau spared from utter defeat in the meat grinder that followed. Yet still, it proved horribly costly. Eonvar was slain by nightmarish Imperial assassins, though his death was kept secret. At the same time, rather than accept stalemate at the hands of upstart Xenos, the Imperium unleashed an Archaeotech superweapon, whose fires blackened Agrellan and spread across the Damocles Gulf to drive both sides apart. It was an atrocity on a scale the Tau had never imagined, and it ended the Third Sphere expansion in grisly fashion. The end of the Third Sphere expansion saw the Tau Empire hemmed in by the fires of the Damocles Gulf, the devastation left by High Fleet Gorgon, and the awakening Necrons of the Sutek dynasty. The Great Rift had opened, and the Tau looked up at this phenomenon with deep disquiet. Pushed by the Ethereals to find a solution to the Empire's sudden isolation, the Earthcast fashioned a new device from the cannibalized Imperial and Kroot technologies. The AL-38 slipstream module created a bubble of antimatter around a ship, then propelled it fast enough to pierce the skin of reality itself. Initial tests were successful, though its inventor, Fiova Kabuto, warned that much more testing was needed. Eonvar brushed aside these concerns and amassed a new fleet to begin the Fourth Sphere expansion from Numenor Point. At a word from their Supreme Commander, the Armada engaged their slipstream drives as one. The empiric cataclysm that followed was beyond the understanding of the Tau, but it swallowed their expansion fleet whole and left a churning vortex of unreality in its wake. The fleet was believed lost. Worse, the Tau Empire now found itself under constant assault, as though the Great Rift had driven the rest of the galaxy to madness. For the first time in millennia, hope within the Empire faltered. Then came a solitary signal, relayed from a single drone exploring beyond the zone of silence. Upon investigation, the Tau were amazed to find that drone orbiting a spiralling wormhole and transmitting ident codes from the fourth sphere expansion. Someone, it seemed, had survived. And once again, for more information, please follow the links in the description to the video discussing this expedition and the birth of the Tau god. The Tau named the wormhole the Star-Tide Nexus and sent drones through to exchange messages and genetic samples confirming the survival of the Fourth Sphere fleet. They fortified the region around the anomaly until it was as well defended as Tau Prime itself. Only once they were certain all was in readiness did the Ethereals send the Fifth Sphere expansion fleet into the Nexus. Newfound optimism invigorated the Empire. Waves of colonists sought to take part in the grand Fifth Sphere expansion. Shadowsun was revived from stasis to lead the journey to reunite with Commander Surestrike's survivors. Massive commands of each caste joined the muster, for the dangers beyond the wormhole would doubtless be great. Even so, what the Tau found there shook their conviction. Arrayed around its exit point was a ragged collection of vessels, deep space arcologies, and habitat pods. Several craft had been disassembled and remade into a hexagonal structure ringing the wormhole, its weapons pointing outwards into the darkness of frontier space. A hail across the comms welcomed Shadowsun's mighty fleet to Nemyar Atoll. Shadowsun and a cadre of senior Ethereals debriefed the haggard Surestrike and his command staff. The Edification Corps restricted the information flow between Fourth and Fifth Sphere personnel. Despite this, disturbing rumours circulated. It was said the Fourth Sphere vessels had been becalmed in a nightmarish sub-realm, and that unnatural aliens had set upon them. The creatures defied the laws of nature. They manifested suddenly from thin air. They dragged out the torments of their victims, driving alien auxiliaries mad, tearing ships apart from the inside out, and seeming to feed upon the growing pain and terror. Such tales were terrible, but somehow worse was the survivors' reticence to talk about the mysterious manifestation that dragged them free and tore a great furrow through unreality in the process. This, it appeared, was how the wormhole had been formed. The survivors appeared haunted, especially in the presence of non-Tau. It was only by the insistence of the Ethereals that Surestrike allowed alien auxiliaries to board the gate. Even then, his warriors trained pulse rifles on them constantly. What had become of the Fourth Sphere's own auxiliaries was a mystery, though dark whispers spoke of forced exiles and even mass liquidations. Some theorized the Fourth Sphere's Tau had witnessed something pure being corrupted beyond countenance, and now placed the blame at the door of those aliens inducted into the Tau-Va. Now it had begun, however, the momentum of the Fifth Sphere expansion could not be allowed to falter due to such mysteries. Even as investigations continued, colonization forces pushed out into the Nemyar Atoll through the region humanity knows as the Chalnath Expanse. Fourth and Fifth Sphere forces fought side by side, soon encountering old foes such as the Orks of the Fulner Nebulae, as well as many new aliens. The first campaigns of this expansion were successes, yet they were tainted by the controversial actions of the Fourth Sphere Tau. Massacres of non-Tau indigens, battles in which casualties amongst the alien auxiliaries were intentionally maximized, atrocities such as Dulan Lakes and the 8 Days of Infamy, all built a picture of Tau who were willing, even eager, to air their newfound prejudices in the form of violence. After the Kroot uprising on the colony of Kaisan, the Ethereals removed all alien auxilia from the contingents of Fourth Sphere Tau. Several of their prominent commanders were subjected to the ritual punishment of Malkla, before being returned to the ranks or sent back to the Empire for re-education. Despite these tragedies, the septs of Fishsan, Kortal, and Yuvai were soon established and thriving. Beyond their borders, the Tau confirmed the presence of bastions of the omnipresent Imperium, and braced for the inevitable retribution for their colonization efforts thus far. To their surprise, the human systems appeared heavily disrupted, their communications and interstellar travel minimal. Spy drones observed sprawling civil wars and uprisings on many Imperial planets. Far from massing for a counterstrike, the humans appeared mired in their own troubles. Yet before the Fifth Sphere forces could exploit the foe's weakness, another threat emerged. Bloated, rust-caked human warships burst from some inexplicable subrealm and attacked Nimyar Atoll itself. A bloody naval battle followed. Identifying the enemy as the Death Guard, Oshasira knew this foe could not be permitted to pass through the wormhole to threaten the Empire. She recalled all aircast vessels that could reach the atoll in time. The commander then raced to the aid of the outmatched defence fleet, orchestrating cunning Kion strategies from the moment she entered the battlesphere. Gunship squadrons lured enemy warships into devastating crossfires, only for the fetid hulks to soak up impossible punishment. Plague munitions rippled through the void to stave in Nikasa Daos or chew through the hull of Tau colony ships. Punishing boarding actions pitted fire warriors against hulking brutes who spread their weaponized phages through the Tau ranks. Fearing her efforts would not prove enough, Oshasira sent a prototype messenger drone streaking back through the wormhole, warning the defenders in the zone of silence to ready themselves. Despite all the Tau could do, a portion of the Death Guard fleet muscled their way through. In that moment of despair, however, the remaining plague ships disengaged. Shadowsun and her comrades watched as the enemy melted away into the void, leaving devastation in their wake. Stranger still, as the days stretched on beyond the wormhole, no enemy craft emerged. At last, the Tau were forced to conclude that none would. Yet still, the defences in the zone of silence remain bolstered and vigilant, lest a foe, thought vanished, should emerge again. The Battle of the Atoll had mauled the Fifth Sphere fleet, yet Shadowsun did not allow this to halt their progress. Instead, the Tau pushed out into human systems riven by internal strife. Here and there the watercast found populations desperate for the succour of the Tauvar. Yet the Tau also found Guela, or humans tainted by alien mutation, or else fallen to the insanity that was now becoming depressingly familiar. Meanwhile, those worlds that did resist clung harder than ever to their fanatical faith. The cardinal world of Astogaius was especially costly to pacify, thanks to the zealotry of its defenders, while on Cestes and Saints Halt, black-armoured space marines struck with disturbing insight. In the Picun system, it was the alien-human hybrids who gained the upper hand, forcing the Tau to employ stealth insertion tactics to destabilize their warring foes. Gradually, with great effort, the Tau claimed one world after another for the growing Nimya Atoll. Further and further out spiraled the conflict, drawing in fresh Imperial forces, rampaging aliens, and contingents sent from the Empire, or else raised amidst the freshly founded septs. The Tau had made great strides upon this new front. A mighty adjunct to their empire was growing from bitter seeds, yet the fight to defend and to expand that territory was only just beginning. Filthy Xenos. Terrible. Thank you all for watching. Please do give the video a like and let me know in the comments what you thought. And do hit the bell and subscribe and all that. These things really, really help the channel grow. I need all the help I can get. I'm a smaller channel, you know. I've got to grow. I've got to keep growing. And the algorithm must be assuaged. So, you know, praise the machine spirit. I hope you enjoyed this. There's a lot of new stuff in there, new bits of the lore and stuff. I'll include links below. There's a lot of different things to link to of previous stuff I've done that this is calling upon. It's sort of like a bit generic in some area, a bit general in some areas, but I've got a lot of videos that delve into detail of things you're interested in. The Tau Guard, the Farsight Enclaves, the Second Damocles Gulf Crusade, so that's the battle for Mugaloth Bay. I'll include links to, and, Aeon She, all this sort of stuff. I'll include links to these below. Please go and check those videos out. You will enjoy them if you enjoyed this. Yeah, I love the Tau. I mean, love might be a strong word. I love the Crutes. I like the Tau. I know people have got a problem with them. They've seen them as like, they're just, I don't know what the word is. They think they're just, Deus Ex Mechanic. You know what I mean? Like they can just, people get upset that they can beat the Imperium. But like, if you appreciate the scales that we're talking about, they only just survive, Their victories are picking at weakened Imperial targets. So don't worry. Space Marines are still badass, all right? These are just mecha suits. Anyway, I like them. I like what they're doing with the whole Tau God thing and like this faction of the Tau who, don't like aliens anymore because of what they met. That Tau God delves into that. I did it a few years ago, so it might be a bit dated now in terms of the presentation, but I hope you enjoy it. I really enjoyed that book it's based on. I really like Phil Kelly's work. For those of you who don't know, he's Mr. Tau. But again, no, what am I doing? I'm just going to rant, and I don't want to rant. I want to finish this. I want to end this. I want to go. I've been recording for too long on this. Thank you all for watching again. And again, please do like the video, subscribe, hit the bell so you get alerted when new videos are out, because people say they don't see the videos sometimes in their feeds, whatever. If you do, hit the bell. You should see it. And let me know in the comments what you thought. Thank you to everybody supporting the channel on Patreon or as a YouTube member. I really, really appreciate that. You guys are the ones who really help the lights stay on. And, yeah, hopefully your name's on here. If it isn't, it will be updated soon. But the list is spiraling by. You are the champions of this channel. I really, really appreciate it. If you'd like to help me out and support me in that way, please use the links again below or hit the join button on YouTube. But I'll be back again soon anyway, lads. I appreciate you coming. I'll be back again soon. And we'll have some Imperium stuff. There'll be another big video about Imperium stuff. Don't you worry. I'm going to see you right. It's enough filthy Xenos stuff for now. Get back to the real good stuff. Maybe it'll have a shovel. There's a bit of a spoiler for you. Alright, I'll be back again soon. Emperor protects. The greater good. For the greater good. But really, the Emperor protects. Ta-ra!